Happy Friday, everyone. Welcome to the 42 Social Club. Thank you again for joining, and hopefully you had an outstanding week. I'm really happy to see you, be a part of this, be a part of the conversation. It has been quite a tremendous week. As always, there's always something to be seen and to be a part of. So hopefully you had a good day. You were good to yourself. You were good to everyone around you. And you enjoyed what was happening today. And it's heading into the weekend. Hopefully you are doing that as well. You have a chat box over there on the right-hand side. Make sure to sign in, enter in what your name is, say hello out there so I can track that as well, because we're going to be playing some games later on in the session as always. So again, please feel free to make sure that everything is going on. Let me do a quick sound check here. Outstanding. It's good. So now you can hear me on the stream. Very nice. Hopefully you are joining us with a number of drinks. Was very blessed. Send a huge shout out to Crafty Devils. PJ, you humble me with this, but I was able to receive, and I'll tweet a picture of some of these, but I got a Goldwater hop chowder in the mail, undamaged. There was actually 5 cans in there from Goldwater, so I appreciate you and sending that. One, look at Pixelman Dan is in the chat. What's up, my friend? Miss you. Actually, interesting story about me and Pixelman Dan. We actually went to school out on East Campus, peripherally knew each other, and now we actually happen to be very close friends thanks to the internet and everything else. So it's actually very cool to connect that way. The other thing for the few of you, I wanted to show this. This is another thing from Crafty Devils. I was actually not expecting this one either, but I'll mention this later on how to get some. Got 42 Social Club stickers for whatever you want, computer, your car. Most likely I'm going to try to find room on my hydro flask. All my guests are already going to get some, so Kyle, don't worry, you don't have to actually request that. I'll be sending those to you anyway. But again, keep a lookout for some 42 Social Club stickers. I'm going to tell you in a little while how to get those as well. So thank you again, Will, and everyone else. But wanted to introduce my guest. He is guest number 5, but I am blessed enough to be able to call him friend. He is the first player in the Social Club, so very excited to hear some of his stories, but also he had a big announcement this week, so we get to kind of talk about his group. I believe it's 5 as 1, so actually I got to buy one of those shirts as well, because it's a brilliant program that him and I believe a couple of other people on Twitter are running that as well. But ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the Social Club the himself, Kyle Murphy. How are you, man?
I'm well. How are you?
Like I said, I'm just happy to be here. Lovely to see you as always. And that
lovely to see you.
That what was it? It's your perspicacious self, as it were.
That's such a great word.
It was crazy too, because what came to mind when I saw it, obviously I was looking for someone for as a word very intelligent, but I saw that and it's like, of someone who knows of a topic but is very discerning as well. I'm like, that's very Tyrion Lannister, right? So it was
I've ever been compared to Tyrion.
No, so that you can, right? No, you drink and learn. You drink and know things.
Yes, I drink.
That's it, right? Cheers. What are you drinking tonight, anyway?
Shout out to my business partner Tom Blazer. Blaze introduced me to the Tito's and Cactus Cooler.
Oh, excellent! Right on. Yeah, we will have to. I will have to try that next time.
It's sweet, but it is delicious.
I am okay with that. Now I should probably be drinking that or something cooler, because I'm in my garage with a fan on. So if I start to glisten, you know why? I'm a little bit shiny. But I did want to talk about that. Was good, because obviously there's a bajillion questions. I'm sure everyone else will kind of post them in the chat as well. But I wanted to hear more, about. We were fortunate enough to talk about what you and Senor Blazer do, but also just wanted to kind of talk about what that is, right, and what your new venture is. I think you've kind of partnered, so let us know what you've been doing first.
So back in, I coached, I coached high school football for about 15 years. And then when I moved to my current high school uh, in Garden Grove, I coached there, and then decided my head coach ended up getting another job. There wasn't a teaching job available for me to follow him, so I stayed at Pacifica, and then, which is the school in Garden Grove, and said, I'm just kind of over coaching. So because I had taken over the entire workout uh, or running program, everything leading up until we got a head coach, which was about 2.5 months, and I was just burnt out. Because I would teach my 5 periods, and then I would use my conference period to start football and do all that.
Right.
So I'd get home and just be toast. And so I took, that was 2015. I took that year off. 2016, oddly enough, I ended up coaching at the high school I went to, our rival high school. I coached there for a year, which was an absolute train wreck for a variety of reasons.
Wow.
Mainly the head coach, and I mean, we could do a whole like YouTube, like things not to do as a head coach was him, and so it was a good learning experience.
I'm gonna write that down.
Yeah, and then after that, I started training just friends or parents who who knew of kids that I coach, and say, hey, I've got an offensive lineman. And really where it started to take off, and it got more serious, and you've met him, was with Mike Safel, who's at Cal. And it was through him that I really saw someone. He's the first player that I've ever met through coaching, through all my time, that is basically me. He is who I was in college as a high schooler. That's how much he cared about, that's how much he cares about the sports, how much he cares about being the best he can, but he's also incredibly smart. He's a 4.2 student at Cal, and he's in the business school there. So way different than me in that respect.
Both of us, I guess.
Yeah. So that became, and then he introduced me to kind of what flipped my head on my own coaching, which was LaCharles Bentley, and which is what's known as now OLP Media, Offensive Line Performance. And it takes everything from a scientific and biomechanical approach.
Right.
And so he and I, so Mike and I worked together training. We would communicate and collaborate and work through to get him ready for Cal. And that went really well. And that kind of propelled another parent, or his dad was talking to another parent, which then got me to working that kid out. And then while that was happening, Ryan Riley. So Ryan played at Arizona State. He was 94 to 98, 99.
Okay.
99. So he works down in Huntington. He's a cop in Huntington.
Okay.
And so he and I have kept in contact. And then, so his son, who just graduated, he wanted us to work with his son. So I started that 2 years ago. And then I met Blaze via Twitter, via the bird. And we can talk about, ultimately where Blaze went to high school and coached is 5 miles from Pacifica, and they're in the same league.
Okay.
And we didn't even know it. And, we just kind of connected, via Twitter. And when they were having a good playoff run in 2018, or 2017, I was congratulating them, all that kind of good stuff. And then I realized that, as older as I am, with kids and responsibilities, there's just no way that I'm going to be able to facilitate making training anything other than a few kids here and there and all of that. So I asked him to say, hey, do you want to train with me? Ultimately Blaze is great because I'm much more cynical and pessimistic, and Blaze is much more positive, and looks at the optimism of things, which is a great counterbalance. So foundationally, we are the same, right? We think alike in terms of what's important to us, what matters to us philosophically, but how we get there is much different, and it's good for both of us. you'll find very few partnerships where there's there's a 15-year age gap between Blaze and I.
Oh, okay.
And that's great because I'm in a different phase in my life than he is, and so I have that experience piece of it. He has, he grew up in in a different age than I did, and it's still not, I wouldn't say it's quite, full on Facebook and that was there,
Right.
but a much more digital age. I understand it. He gives me better clarity to it.
Okay.
And I just love the thing I love most about him is his willingness to learn, right? Like he wants to keep learning. He wants to keep getting better. He wants to, there's never, he's not satisfied. And that, speaks to me because of my wife and my family and the things that are important to me. And so it just made sense for me to ask him. We sat down over breakfast and kind of talked it out. And then it's been a slow process, and we've wanted it
Right.
that way. We announced that we actually had a company name, and it was Pixelman Dan who did the logo for us. And so we announced on the Hog Football Chat, which is just a weekly chat that talks about offensive line play and things like that. And that kind of made it real. And then we had the opportunity over the last month to get into a facility. And so we've been working the last couple of weeks at just finishing up the language and, signing the user agreement. And so it's small. We're working just 4 hours a weekend. So it'll be 2 hours on Saturday, 2 hours on Sunday, but it's our foot in the door, and it's kind of, it's like anything. It's all of a sudden things become real very fast, right? You're talking things, and then, we formed, LegalZoom, LLC, all that kind of fun stuff. But it's just all of a sudden, your mind's kind of like, oh, I got to do all these things, and there's, but ultimately, we're incredibly excited about it. We think it can help catapult us, into kind of a different thought process of people. And we're fortunate, we're in Southern California, so it's not as if there's a lack of high schools or, or players. We're being smart also, in terms of like when we train, still following guidelines, not having more than, in our facility, will be no more than 6 people. And that's at the max. And so, again,
are you working out with or without masks?
No, they will work out without masks, but again, everything is spread out to where we have enough space in our facility to where we can do everything we need to do and keep the kids apart. We have masks. Everything's, all of the protocols that California has will be followed. And I have the protocols actually on my phone so that we have them, so that we can make sure we're following them. So it's not just hey, we can, so we will. It's, we've already had some people reach out and say, hey, we'd really like to work at the facility. And we're like, that's great. That's not going to work right now. It's just, if we get enough interest and we get enough consistent interest, then we can maybe look to adding time or doing things like that. But in terms of, in order to follow those guidelines, in order to, be smart, we're not going to put players at risk to make money. And that's not, for us, ultimately, it's not, this is a second, it's just a fun income source really at this point.
Right.
It's not going to, I'm not going to stop teaching. He's not going to stop doing what he's doing. So, but that was the exciting news. And it's, we were sitting on it. We knew basically Friday of last week.
Okay.
So we were just waiting to hear from the place called Volta. We're waiting just to hear from them from a language standpoint, because there's just some things we wanted to add into the user agreement, which they agreed to, which was, everything was great and easy. But yeah, we basically knew Friday, and I think we had to wait so waiting till Tuesday was like, okay, let's go.
Now we can.
Yeah. So ultimately we train offensive linemen.
I was going to say, because you had some people reach out to you, is it purely O linemen that is you're going to cater to, or do you have like other people reaching out to you?
I mean, we did have someone reach out. I believe it was Andy Clemens, who's a Sun Devil, asking us about tight ends. So there are things we can do from a strength perspective.
Interesting.
There are things we can do from a strength perspective, from a stance perspective, and then from just an athletic perspective. But we focus on offensive line. That's what we've devoted to. It's kind of, it goes back to the vocab word. If you want to be really good at something, yeah, we could train other things, but what
Right.
we want to be really good is at this one thing. It's the thing, that he and I know the most about, and yet
Okay.
still learning, all the time about it. And so easier to do that and be really, really good at it, and be, and be able to. The other key is you don't want to get too big too fast, right? Because
Of
then it
course.
becomes just numbers. Like, oh, great, I got a bunch of people who come and work out and they pay us, and that's awesome. But are we making them better? Do they understand? Do they get it?
Right.
Like, it's not just, hey, come train with us. It's, you're getting all of that, right? You're getting my experience. You're getting the, that it's not, there's much more than just football involved. Like, how, all of those things matter. And that's really what we want to focus on, is the complete player, not
Right.
the complete offensive line athlete, as opposed to just, hey, we can make you better athletically. Like, there are principles that guide you in life as well, and that's what we want to pass along within that framework.
That's brilliant, that real controlled approach, right? Because I can only imagine, especially with the way it's going and the way some kids just want to be able to stay on top of their game, right? And just expanding for the sake of expansion can be a detriment, right? They always say that growth is how you're going to grow. Growth is what drives your business, but if you just have raw numbers, you don't want it. You don't want this beautiful little thing that you guys have created to grow so quickly that it just absolutely goes sideways, and then you just have the different reputation that you absolutely don't want, right?
Right, and then you can't recover from that, right? Then
Absolutely.
you just can't. And ultimately understanding, and Blaze and I have talked, quite a bit about this. Like, where is our niche? Like,
Hmm.
where do we belong? Because there are there's another amazing company, and they're in Southern California as well, and that's Allegiance Athletics, and Allegiance are, Cody Afusia and Chris Ward. Cody played at Hawaii, and Chris played at Mater Dei and played at UCLA. So,
Okay.
and same principles.
Hmm.
They are, but they are in that more of that upper echelon market. Mater Dei, St. John Bosco, privates,
Oh, okay.
J. Sarah's, like, in Southern California, we're talking about the top elite offensive linemen, right? And so
Okay.
also understanding that where do we fall? Can we train those guys? Absolutely.
Of course.
But Blaze and I had this conversation today. Ultimately, when you are 6'3", 300 pounds, or that size, you're going to want to train with guys that are your size and your athletic ability, because it makes you feel like you're in the right spot, right? You
Okay.
just you feel, there's no other way to say it than you feel normal. Like, it's when I go back to school and I'm around the offensive lineman at 6'5", I don't feel tall. I
Right.
feel normal. I fit in. Like, this is, there's, Juan's bigger. Like, there's so many more guys taller than me, bigger than me,
Right.
that it just makes you feel comfortable. And so you're going to always gravitate towards that.
Okay.
And those guys are going to be, those are D1 kids, right? Or D2 kids. You're talking about, the top athletes in, from an offensive line standpoint in South County. So we want to target those other kids that are just below that, right?
Hmm.
And really exploit that market. Exploit's not the right word. Really attack that market.
Well, that's where the
So
need is, right? There's a gap. You're filling
correct,
a gap. Absolutely.
correct. But it's understanding and not comparing ourselves to Cody and Chris, right? And making sure that we take that really slow burn approach, so that we're doing it the way that's best for us.
Of course. How long have they been? I don't know. I'm not familiar with that group, but how long have they been in business? I mean, obviously you guys just started, but have they? It
They've
sounds
been
like they've been around.
about a year, I think, fully, close to almost 2 years fully. I think. I
Wow.
think
Okay.
this would be what's 2020. So this would be the end, leading up to this football season would have been their second full off
Okay.
season. They're just I mean, honestly, they're just ahead of us. Like, I
Okay.
had talked to Blaze, and I had talked to Chris about the possibility of the three of us getting together in
Mm,
business. But he had then said, "Hey, no, I've already talked to Cody about it." Which, okay, great.
okay.
Um, and then the four of us collaborate, talk, and so we're all on good terms. In fact, we all have a DM, chat that we
That's cool.
talk through. So it's not, hey, you're taking business from us. It's
Yeah,
we want to see you guys be successful. We want to see ourselves be successful. And honestly, in Southern California, there's enough. There's enough. Like
absolutely.
there's no
It's
way
the
for. Go ahead.
it's there's no there's a mindset of abundance, right? That's clearly definitely something between who you have, because it's always something where someone says they're coming from a place of lack or without, right? And then that's why they get in that, no, you can't have that, no, you can't be here, I won't talk to you. It's always that extreme. It's not competition, but it's just I just almost feel like it's just a mentality of I'm without, and if someone comes in doing the same thing, they're gonna take something from me. Where I've learned this, and this was something that I learned. I said this many years ago, but I never believed it until recently. But there's enough there's enough money and people and resources for everyone to be able to be comfortable, to be able to be happy, and again, that's brilliant setup that you guys have there, that you don't have to worry about, okay, this guy's going to come down and take bodies from us, or
Yeah,
squash us in a weird deal or whatever it is.
it's it makes it makes it frees up your mind, right? And to your
Right.
point, yes, there's this feeling. It's an inherent competition, and I think we see it in life, right? If I don't have and you have, I'm jealous of what you have,
Yeah.
or I want that. And then it becomes, I'm going to do what I want to get what I want. And that's where you start getting into problems, and companies not being able to coexist. And you just have
Right.
to it, and again, it's the advantage for me at 45 to understand that lots of hiccups in the road. That's not, there's lots of hiccups in my road, like a ton. Been fired twice. Like, I get it.
Right.
So I have that experience of, I don't need, right? I don't, the faster this goes, the more difficult it is. You need things in place. You need to have conversations, and they're difficult conversations, and they're not, and by difficult, it's just nobody wants to talk about agreements
Yeah.
between partners when you're friends. Like, nobody wants to do that. But if you don't, that's how, you know, crap goes
Absolutely.
wrong, right? Like, that's how it just goes wrong, because you, you the unwillingness to be uncomfortable early, that solves an issue quickly, becomes something that you know blows up in your face later. So you have to be okay having those conversations. And just me as a person, which those who know me later in life would find this hard to believe, I'm not a huge fan of conflict. Like, it's not something I thrive on, um, because I want people to have a good time and get along. And
Absolutely.
so conflict doesn't interest me. And so I've always had difficulty bringing those kinds of conversations up to other adults, just because it creates conflict.
Right.
And my entire life has been about, hey, I'm bigger than everybody. I always have been, right? And so you're a taller, bigger person. Like, you you work hard to disarm people. That's
Oh
what.
yeah.
Right. So if that's your personality, then having a conflict with someone is not an easy thing to do, because in the back of your mind, oh, he's just a big brute, or
You're
he's,
already
well,
perceived as a threat. Yeah.
it doesn't, and ultimately, right, my voice and all of that plays into it as well. So
Of course.
but it has taken me time, just like you had said about your realization, that, look, I don't have time for stupid anymore. I just don't.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't have time for it. And I'm not, if you want to work with us, or if you want to, work and let's work together, I'm all for it. If you don't, I'm not going to waste my energy trying to convince you of why it's a good idea. Either you see it
Of
or you
course.
don't. Um, that's not to say, like, hey, there's not a certain selling that goes involved, but I'm not
Hmm.
going to, that's the great thing about not coaching. If you don't want to work with us, that's great. I'm okay with that. Like, it's
Right.
fine. I don't take offense to it. I don't, because my pride isn't caught up in who I am as a coach. It's not who I coach. It's not who I can say, hey, they worked with us. Who I am is about who I am as a friend, a son, a father, right? All of those, a husband, all of those things are far more meaningful to me than whether somebody thinks, oh, I can't work with him, or he's arrogant,
Right.
or whatever the case may be. So be it. Like, I got plenty of people who like me and know who I am, and so
Absolutely.
okay.
And it's brilliant too because where you're working with is it Chrisophel?
Mike.
Mike Safel. So I think, he's definitely getting a lot of preseason chatter, from the
Mhm.
conference, and even I haven't seen any of the national rags yet. I have my Phil Steele on order, so hopefully
Oh,
he's in
nice.
there. But I'm glad, you know, wonderful young man, fantastic family. So thank you for allowing,
Yes.
me and my family to meet them. But it's almost as if he's like he's almost as if like he is a good friend of yours, but it's almost as well, he would be able to be that kind of poster child as well.
Oh
Because
no,
he is.
he's oh for sure. No, I mean to that point, when we built the website, it's testimonials. Mike will be on there for sure.
Wonderful.
And we have a kid, Ryan's son, Luke Riley, will be on there, and
Okay.
Ryan Easterday, who plays at Edison, will be on there. These are wonderful, people. I mean, Ryan's at Edison. He was also, I think, he was all academic,
Wow.
as
Right
well.
on.
Luke just graduated, so I mean, great people, and yeah, and it's hard. And when I had this conversation with other trainers, there are guys scattered around the country that we follow and that subscribe to the same methodology and that we do, and it's hard as an offensive lineman to promote yourself, even with a business.
We've
It's
talked about this. Yeah,
yeah,
understood. Yeah, you don't want to toot your. We like, yeah, we like heads down, do work, but tooting our own horn.
it's hard,
Eh.
and understanding that that's a balance, that if you want to accomplish
Right.
things, you have to be uncomfortable with that. And
Okay.
probably that, and then, my wife teaching me, hey, the squeaky wheel gets the oil, right?
Yep.
And it's super uncomfortable for me to text people, right? Like,
Agreed.
if I haven't heard things in a couple hours, it's not usual, or makes me feel uncomfortable to want to send that text, and I go through a battle in my head. But ultimately, I know, like, look, if I don't, who knows what they're thinking? I,
Of course.
and it's my own
Right.
and I have to overcome those things still, right? Those are still part of my own insecurities that I have to deal with in order
Fair.
to overcome and grow what I want to grow. Because
Right.
I could very easily just sit on my couch and, okay, I train Saturday and Sunday, a couple guys, that's great, and that's it. But that's never gonna that's always gonna be easy. Like, that's not hard.
Exactly. That's the minimum. That's the bare minimum. And you
Right.
have it, and it's okay to have aspirations, right? And to make this
Right.
grow, but it's also be able to, serve those who are excited to be part of this, right? Because that's kind of one of the things that I started coming around to. I think this is a brilliant time for you because to do this, right? There's and same thing the way I started doing this, right? It's always the best time to take on a new venture at the most difficult time in the world, right? I mean, I remember
Right.
one of the companies I worked in, they started a month after the .com bust. So, and they were in business for 20 years, right? And everything else. So, and it was at the worst time, right? So, I mean, I I, I don't know if this is the worst time, but it's definitely a downtime where there's opportunities that you found, and it's a brilliant opportunity to be able to take advantage of. And it's going to be exciting to see it grow because there's going to be people noticing it, and it's going to happen. And that's so exciting to see all of that.
And it's, for me, that's the other part for that I have to learn to deal with. That's hard for me, and that's attention. And while, excuse me,
Sure.
Twitter has been much better for me, and it's allowed me to kind of craft a voice that I feel super comfortable with now. Um, it's still, I mean, you know this, and we've discussed this, and other people that I've had this conversation with. I don't like talking about me. I don't like talking about
Right.
success. I
Exactly.
don't like. It's not. It makes me really uncomfortable, and it's hard to express to people why that is. But again, it goes back to, if you spend your entire career working as one within five, right?
Mm-hmm.
20% of a group. You don't look at even if you have success, you don't, it's to me, it's a byproduct of what I've done, right?
Right.
With the other guys that I've played with. And so if we're going to talk about me, then we need to talk about them. And that's why I always defer to that. But to your point, I have to understand that there are people who are going to be excited to work with us, right?
Oh, absolutely.
For a variety of reasons. And so that's stepping out of my comfort zone and understanding that I'm going to have to deal with that. And that's okay. But for me, it's one of the hardest things to deal with. Like it's really, I get super uncomfortable about it, dude. Like
I don't blame you, man. No,
it's not something I like at all.
I understand that, right? Because again, it's always, again, I think it's our shared personality where, we're there to help make sure everyone is having a good time. We want to make sure everyone's doing well. Is everything addressed? And again, I think that's why I admire O-line play. I never played football. I actually played basketball, but I think that's why I admired that position group so much, because they were just a bunch of guys that were just there as one unit, silently but thoroughly taking care of business, right? Because again, everyone says that's where the play starts. And when you see everything else like that, and that's the other thing too. So, and I got you to talk about yourself for 32 minutes. So how's that?
You are very good and very disarming about that.
But I know, that's why I wanted to, right?
Talking about like what I'm doing or my family or like, I don't mind talking about that. It's hard to talk about like the individual success of playing. Like
Okay.
that's more what I'm talking about. I can talk about. I mean, we've done this. I'll talk about my
Sure,
wife all
please.
day long. I mean, she's amazing and she's smart, and the fact she's with me and dealt with
Can confirm she is amazing.
Yes, for over 20 years is, that yay me.
Yeah, we're the ones that made out. Yeah, because I hit 23, so we're the ones that made out on the. Yeah, we made out good
for sure. So I don't mind that. It's just, I think, and we've talked about this as well, and I've talked about this. That group of men and boys at that time
right.
is just a really special group of people, of humans, and I think if you look at most teams that have a lot of success, that's typically the case. Because you can't not. It's impossible, right?
Have you met other players from other let me spin this one. It seems that O-line is a very tight-knit group, regardless if you are winning or losing, right? Yes. So when you meet O-linemen from other colleges, right, do they have similar stories like you, right, where they've done everything as a family and as a unit through life?
Yes. And this is Twitter again, and I know a lot of people besmirch it, and I'm very lucky because I can tailor it and curate it a way that is super. I can avoid, like if I wanted to, I could avoid certain things, right? If I wanted to avoid politics, I could.
Yeah.
And for the most part, I'll talk about an individual behavior, but I very rarely get into policy because I just don't read enough about it. But decency as a person, sure, blah blah blah. But Twitter has, so we've talked about Blaze and what that. Without Twitter, I don't meet Blaze. Conversely, I met a buddy of mine. His name's Kevin Lodeman. Kevin lives in Ohio and played at Ohio State, and I met him via Twitter. And I went back and visited him in 2017 and went to the Ohio State Penn State game. And so, and we got close.
You actually went to the shoe after that. Well, I guess
I did. It took me 20 years, but it also, I knew it was going to be an opportunity that didn't present itself. And it was more to go root on Saquon Barkley in Penn State. Ohio State, which didn't work out in my favor either, which sucked. But really what it did, so Kevin and I are close, but it also led me to Jamie Sumner. And Jamie lives in Kansas, but played at Ohio State. He graduated actually in '95. Kevin was actually on the team that we played in the Rose Bowl. Jamie was not.
Oh, okay.
But Jamie was at like Orlando. He played next to Orlando Pace. Orlando invited him out. He was at his Hall of Fame ceremony.
Oh, okay.
And Jamie and I have become incredibly close. Like, we talk on the phone, and And so to your point, we give each other crap about schools, and
Of
obviously he
course.
has one up on there, but we rarely talk about football. We just talk about life, right?
Cool.
And the friendship that has presented itself um, because of being an offensive lineman
Right.
has been amazing. It's been really great.
That's
Uh,
outstanding.
and it's and so to your point, yes, we talk about um, the things that he shares are the same things that I share all the time.
Right.
And so
That's cool.
I don't think it ever really changes. I think most offensive linemen are the same. But if you're a true offensive lineman and that's your thought process, um, and then that's how you're going to be.
Excellent. That's good. And so now, just as by way of transitioning, right? Obviously, for everyone that's kind of going to watch this on replay, it's not watching us on live, and for the 17 viewers that are not familiar with, right? Kyle Murphy did play for Arizona State, was an O lineman in that fantastic 96 season. I think when did you were there from what years again?
I was there 93 to 97. So
93. Did you redshirt?
I did. My first year was 93. I just practiced, gotten a lot of fights at practice.
Okay.
Um,
That was under Coach Snyder, right?
It was. I was fortunate too that I was with Bruce the entire all 5 of my years.
Wow.
And Pizzetto, which is unusual. You're like, whereas Jake had 4 different coaches in 4 years, I had Pizzetto all 5 years. So it was super fortunate that way. Yeah.
Coaches meaning head coaches, or not head coaches, but just
position coach. No, he had 4 position coaches. So Jake had Bobby Petrino was our first year, because Jake and I both came in 93, but he didn't redshirt, obviously.
Okay.
And so he graduated. His last year was 96, whereas mine was 97.
Right.
So anyway, yeah, I redshirted, and then John Black, who was a long snapper, we didn't have enough linemen to play scout team, which is what you do when you're a redshirt.
Right.
And so we just made it a point, and Jason Kyle, and if anybody out there is actually watching knows Jason, and Jason's a great guy, but when he played in college, he was a complete red ass. Like everything pissed him off. Everything. Like there's
wow.
If you held him a little bit, he wanted to fight you. So John and I would just say, all right, let's see who can get in a fight with John or Kyle first. And it's with Jason first. And so we would usually a fight a day, usually transpire with Jason. And so, because you're finding ways to entertain yourselves because you don't get to play. So
you're just off. Where were you guys then? If the team was on the field, were you guys on the field just like in some corner, or where were you guys at?
And you'll see these guys now. They're the guys in sweats or in pants and jerseys. Some schools put them in the stands, but we're on the sidelines at home. But you don't travel with the team,
right?
So you don't go to away games, just to those. Just to the
home games, right?
Yeah, to the home.
Okay.
Games.
That was it. And so now that was actually one question, because our Scott Jones had one in the chat, right? What was surprising to you about your college football experience compared to your expectations coming out of high school?
Oh, wow. That's one. I never thought I'd be a 3-year starter. I never thought I'd be an All-American coming out of high school. This is vivid, and I tell this story a lot. So when I was offered on my recruiting trip, which was in December. And because I was playing high school basketball, I took 4 trips in 2 weeks. So I took,
wow.
Yeah, I took, my first trip was to Cal, but they wanted me to walk on. So that was the first weekend. So, and then the following weekend I went to Oregon, and then midweek I went to Colorado State. And then at the end of that week, I went to Arizona State, and then I committed to Arizona State on my trip. And my parents were on the trip, but I didn't confer with them. They didn't know it was going to happen. And I did it in Bruce's office. And then, So then once I signed in February, went to spring ball, and I got to spring ball, and it was me and my dad, and I looked at him and I said, I can't play here. I'm not big enough. I can't play here, because I was just looking at the linemen, and it was, Toby Mills and Chad Ackerley and Demario Vaughn, Kaiser,
Okay.
just dudes that were big, and I wasn't. And so I sat down with Cazzetto and said, "Hey, coach, I can't play here." And he said, "You can, just give it time." And
Yeah.
ultimately, he was right. But yeah, I mean, to the question, I never thought things transpired in a way. I went to Arizona State because I had family that lived in Arizona. I thought there was a good chance I could play early, but that's kind of where it stopped for me. I didn't. It wasn't until I was actually in college and I was working that I didn't. I mean, everybody will tell you that if you ask them that I played with, I was an old man. Like, I didn't go out, I didn't do anything. I didn't. I just wanted to. I wanted to be really, really good.
Right.
But it wasn't until probably '95, which was my second year being able to actually play and starting, and that's when I started, that I was able to really understand, like, I could be really good,
That's
like really
cool.
good. In terms of, if I work really hard, I could be good. Is kind of how that thought
Absolutely.
process went.
Now, what was it? It was Gazzetto was your position coach, right?
Yeah.
And so,
Yes.
what was it? That you know, what were the, let's say, those two lessons that you didn't get in high school that you got in college that kind of really helped you flourish? Obviously.
I don't know that it's so much. I think it was for me. I mean, Arizona State an extension of where I went to high school in terms of the difficulty. Like, Edison High School, I came from Oregon. I didn't grow up in Southern California, so
Hmm.
I didn't know what to expect. I was a
Okay.
sophomore. I didn't know what to expect in terms of football. This is when you still had Hell Week and all of these things, and I don't know what, that wasn't a thing in Oregon. So
Right.
I had come down here, and I got introduced to the sophomore. This is when you had a freshman, sophomore, in JV. The JV team was, you played on Saturdays. It wasn't like it is now, because you had a freshman and a sophomore team. So all the sophomores came up to me and introduced, and, "Hey, are you ready for this?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." I could barely lift my arms up by the second day. I mean, it was so hard. But I would say it's, my head coach, um, believing in me. Hey, you have a chance to go to
Hmm.
college. But specifically, when my mindset shifted was my junior year, and one of my best friends, his dad actually was the offensive coordinator of our rival high school, and after we had won that year, my junior year, he made it a point. He came all the way down from the press box, found me on the field, and told me, "Keep doing what I'm doing, and if I do, I got a real shot to play at the next level." And
Wow.
so for me, that was it. Like, okay, like, that was two adults, that the two most respected football opinions that could have ever said that to me at that time, which was my head
Absolutely.
coach and him. And so from that point, it was, let's go.
That's
I mean,
excellent.
and it, the stories. I mean, there are teachers who didn't think I was going to do it, and um, or a teacher, I shouldn't say teachers, a teacher. So it really shifted. That's when it shifted for me. I was like, oh,
That's
okay.
very cool. And that
So
was out coming in together. Yeah, I had one teacher at the other, because like I've admitted this. I mean, I did a semester at the other school down south, and I had one teacher didn't believe in me, so I just kind of like, you know what, I got to walk away and find my own way. So that was the rest is history, as we will. But it's always a motivator to be able to find that. And so for everyone else, again, I'm transitioning to your playing days, right? So this is
mhm,
definitely something. Camp Tantazona
mhm.
is up in the north central eastern part of the state, and so
Just east of Payson.
right, and it's a brilliant place up there, middle of nowhere, if you will. But what was your first year like at Camp T? Oh, you hear all kinds of craziness. So I got to know what your
Okay.
first year, your
There's
first
so many.
experience at Camp T was.
So freshmen used to have to stay in a trailer. I don't know
Oh,
if that trailer's still there. It was like a ratty old mobile home, type trailer, not like the true mobile homes, but that
the
type
bunch
of
of
a
dudes
trailer.
in there. It's all sweaty. That
Oh
must have
my
been
God, dude! It
fantastic.
just and there was usually, what was there, there was usually six cots in a room. Um, we had the back left corner. Jake was in that, and then I mean, as, in general, I was more so, believe it or not, sarcastic and coming out of high school as a 18-year-old um, testosterone-filled young man. I was just a sarcastic, to be honest, a-hole. And Jake, Jake has been always who won't just go with the status quo. Like if he believes what he believes, so he didn't. He and I argued.
Oh,
Like,
really?
oh my gosh, that first that first Camp T, probably the first 5 days, we couldn't stand each other. Like just
Wow.
yelling at it, like "Shut up, Murph! Shut up, Jake! What do you know?" Blah. It was constant. And then so obviously that changed.
Of course.
But the worst was we got hit with the old guys came down, in the middle of the night and hit us with fire extinguishers, and
Oh,
just filled the entire trailer with fire extinguishers.
they just foamed it up.
Oh, it was
How the
just
hell did you breathe?
it wasn't they yeah they was just this. It was hard to breathe, and we everybody
Yeah.
basically came outside, um and then excuse me, and then I think the coaches asked like what happened, and all of us didn't say anything.
You weren't going to rat anyone out, even though
No,
there's all kinds
no,
of fire retardant everywhere.
not as freshmen. This is you understand, and those who are older will understand these references. But I wasn't going to piss Larry Boyd off. I wasn't going to piss
Right.
Manny Carvajal off. I wasn't going to piss um, Kaiser off or Demario off. Like just those are guys like you're not going to anger. Larry Boyd. This was Larry Boyd and Chuck. So Larry was a defensive lineman, and Chuck Underwood was a guard, and so obviously they would battle all the time.
Right.
They would also rip each other all the time. Like
Okay.
I can't share everything that they did
Of
because
course.
it's just not appropriate. But those big, basically workout balls, right? Like the big Bosu balls
Yep.
that they have at a training facility. Well, we had one that was a giant pink one that the defensive lineman used. One day in between practice, like as we're getting ready for the second practice, Chuck was bouncing on it, and Larry had come out. Chuck goes, "Hey, Larry, what's your mom's ovary doing out here?"
Ah.
Just like, man. And when you start hearing what Larry was saying, you're like, yeah, I'm not going to say anything to piss anybody off ever. It was, it is an eye-opening experience to be sure, but it was great. I learned a lot from those older guys, what to do, what not to do.
Right.
Just as the younger guys learned from us, same thing. I had great teachers though, like the offensive line. The older guys again: Toby Mills, Chuck Underwood, Chad Ackerley, Demario Vaughn, Jeff Kaiser. Those guys were tremendous to me,
Yep.
at least. They were. They felt like they were tremendous to all of us. But it really, Chad was my host when I took my recruiting trip to.
Oh, okay.
So it's interesting to see him go from my host to marrying Jody.
That's funny. And so then obviously you were able to. So how is it for a second year at Camp T? You have a little bit more leeway. Are you razzing the freshmen, or
you're kind of just you're just still trying to figure out where you fit. Like in 90s,
right?
Your first year, you're just trying to see, like, you're trying not to piss anybody off. Honestly, and Marinelli. So Rod Marinelli was our D line coach at the time, and Rod is a Marine, right?
Okay.
Every Marine is a Marine. They're never a former Marine. You're just a Marine.
Right.
And so the only music that we could listen to would be military chants, right?
Okay.
And so
Yeah, you didn't have an iPod back then.
no, there was no, and you weren't allowed to bring.
You weren't allowed to
You could
bring tech
your,
anyway. Oh, got
you
it.
could, like your CD player or your tape player,
Of
right?
course.
Those were left in your room. Very rarely were you walking around with those, so to speak. And so, you're just really trying not to piss him off. You don't know what's happening. 94, you're just trying to, hey, maybe I'll start. I know the playbook a little bit better. I think I can, if, I get some reps, I'll be okay. But I was in 90, so I came to college at 255. I played
Okay.
in 94, I probably played at like 265.
Wow.
So I started a couple games. I was the backup center. So in 94 in practice, I played all four positions so I played all five except left tackle in practice. So I was everywhere.
Wow.
I started a couple games at right guard. I was also when I was starting at right guard, I was still the backup center. So we played Louisville, and our center went down with cramps. Great when your center goes down with cramps. And so
especially in Arizona, that's where we play.
I ended up taking I shorted a snap to Jake. We fumbled the snap. Louisville recovered. We were going in to score. It ended up costing, being a big reason why it cost us the game. So, and then it was then as that season progressed, I don't think I was getting a lot better. I got beat
at
up
that position.
Yeah. At right guard. I mean, we played Cal up there, and Brandon Whiting was a true freshman from Poly, and just made me look silly. Just beat me. Oh, it was. He beat me with the same move I think it was 3 out of 4 moves in a row. I mean, he hit Jake twice. I think he had a sack and 2 hits.
Wow.
And so I didn't play much after that in 94. And then in 95, I had a chance to start because everybody, 94, we were 3-8, we were terrible, and everybody was gone. And so it was a fresh start. Actually 90. Yeah. So it was Gray's second year. And so we had a chance. Juan was moving out to left tackle, so I could fill that left guard spot. And then that's what happened. And then I got that spot, and minus injuries. Those injuries were the only games I didn't start from that point forward. So 95 and 97, I missed 4 games. So that would have been 11 games in 95. I'm trying to calculate total. So 11, 23, 34. So I 30 out of 34.
Wow. Okay.
I started my last.
You got a shout out from Doug Sells on the chat. He said, "I would rather not have remembered that Louisville game. Thanks."
Who was that from?
Doug Sells. He's in the chat.
Yeah, trust me, it's something. So when we talk about talking about oneself, like those are the things I remember. I don't think of all the great plays. I think of those things, like that fumbled snap, or I think about when I talk smack to Jason Peter in 95 at Nebraska because I knocked him off the ball a few yards and was like, that's right. And then the next play, he knocked me 5 yards the other way. And I was like, oh, okay.
So I remember that story.
And then I did that in 95 against U of A. We were up 14 with 7.5 minutes to go. And I basically came to the sidelines and was pumping up the crowd, and because we had just scored and almost celebrating,
right?
And that didn't end well. So basically, at that point, I was like, okay, I obviously I can't talk smack during a game.
Humble and hungry.
Yeah, obviously, just keep your mouth shut. But I mean, it worked for us too, because I mean, again, you've met Juan, and I love Juan. And Juan is loquacious, let's say, and likes to talk. So it was a good balance, kind of like what Blaze and I are. It was a good balance for me and him in terms of our personality, because Juan can get super excited and super emotional when he plays.
Right.
I was much more even keel, old man, just kind of let's do our business and let's get out of here type of a deal.
Right,
So
right.
it worked really well. But yeah, I don't. I learned some hard lessons, like you said. It's humbling. It's very
Well, I
humbling.
think again that's the key, right? Again, that's definitely makes us stronger. It's not the best lesson to have at that time. So let's see, where are we? Are we at the top of the hour? It is 8 o'clock. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna give everyone 5 minutes. I'm gonna do a quick announcement, Kyle. We have a virtual Sun Devil Summit on Friday, July 10th. Make sure you go ahead and refill your drinks. We're coming back in 5 minutes, do a bio break, whatever else it is. I just finished mine. Again, many thanks to Crafty Devils for the hop chowder. That was actually fantastic. And Goldwater Brewing. I'm not exactly sure. I'm going to need your help on that one, Crafty. I'm not exactly sure who owns Goldwater Brewing, but one of the Goldwater sons I actually worked for at a nightclub in Scottsdale called Jets and Sticks. So I'm not exactly sure where they are in that lineage, but go ahead and let me know. But you got 5 minutes. Smoke them if you got them. We will be back shortly. Get yourself another drink, and we will talk in a moment.
What do you think the chances are Mom fell asleep? What's he doing? Coop, what's up? Is Mom in her room, Coop? Is she sleeping?
All right, everyone. Hopefully you have your drinks. Hello, hello, hello. Again, just having the Sun Devil Summit card up here. Remember that we have that after 4th of July weekend. I'm looking at the schedule right now. We don't have a guest next week. I'm gonna have a show. It'll just be you staring at me, but we will have conversations, do some other things as well. But make sure you have refilled yourself. I am doing one of my absolute favorites right now. Full Circle Illa Vanilla. It is a milkshake IPA. I had it once at a Whole Foods on tap, and it haunted my dreams to the point where I had to find it. So if you are blessed enough to find it, I would absolutely highly encourage it. And as Ferris Bueller said in his movie, it is so choice. Padawan is doing a dance because I guess she's won something, or someone either she won something or someone liked her TikTok, whatever in the wide world of sports that is. But yeah, you're gonna have to wait because I'm live. I can't do this. All right, Kyle, we are back. How are you, man? She had to go ahead and come in and say it. So yes, so thanks everyone. So we're gonna play a couple games. Kyle, I think you have seen some of these previously. I do have another few more questions for you. So everyone in the chat, what I have are cards for blank slate. And blank slate, as an example, Kyle, I'm going to give you a card. So I'm going to give a card and it's going to say bear blank.
Okay.
Bear blank. So what would you fill it in as bear blank?
Foot.
Barefoot, right? So then that would be the one. So I'm going to do 5 of these, and I'm going to have everyone kind of write their responses in the chat, and I'm going to go ahead and keep track of these, because then I'm going to give you something. Maybe I'll send you one of these cool stickers, or I'll maybe send you a gift card. I haven't decided. But first one is, let's see if the camera is right, because I got 2 things here. Hold on. Make sure I'm holding it in the right blank father. Blank father. So go ahead and keep that, because we're going to have everyone else chiming in the chat. Make sure you give your answer to blank father. The goal for you is to match what Kyle is going to respond with. I guess there's a bunch of options in here. I'm not exactly sure what everyone's going to go. Amanda Keems out there has requested that I keep TikToking, so I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do there. And I don't know what in the wide world of sports I am going to TikTok, but I will concoct content for you, Ms. Keems. This way we can go ahead and make sure I'm covering all the platforms. King of social media platforms, as it were, in some form or another. We got 1, 2, 3, 4. We only got a few answers. Let me give you, anyone else in there? Anyone else? All right, so we're going to give this to a few people. What say you, Sir Kyle blank father?
Step.
Huh?
Step.
Step. Look at that. William Jasper and Randy Hecht matched you. So look at that. So we already got a tie. What else am I going to do here? Oh, this one's a good one. Make sure I align myself correctly. Punch blank. Punch blank. Some of these I always get a blank. I draw punch blank. Where did you go?
You're good.
Hold on. I can't see you.
Oh.
Did I minimize? Oh, I know what I did.
I did that
I was
earlier.
like, you went away and I can't see you on my screen on the chat. No, that was my fault.
No, I did that to you earlier. Our last segment, I was basically talking to myself because
That's all right. I heard you and everyone was happy about it. So blank. What is it? Punch blank. Punch blank. What say you? We got some good ones in here. What else? What do you think?
Punch drunk.
Nice. Punch drunk. We got crafty, obviously good. Thank you for mentioning that out. Appreciate you. Randy Hecht again with a drunk. That's excellent. So Randy with the lead with 2. I am into it. All right. I'm going to go ahead and do this. The next word. I'm going to type this one in the chat so this way I can go ahead and track this one together. So blank block. See how creative y'all can get when an O-line's going to go ahead and do one of these. Blank block. Blank block. There we go. Who's that? The new word is blank block. Who's going to come up with that one? Although the mind boggles. I'm sure there's only a few you got.
No, I'm guessing. Yeah, I'm guessing about 4 people.
Look at that. Yes. Ready? Keep going. Again, you'll get a right answer eventually, Paul. I promise.
Okay.
Just keep going. Just keep trying. Yeah.
Keep
Don't
trying.
give up. Keep going with that. So everyone's got their.
We ready?
Let's see. Hold on. We got some guesses here. We may have some more people coming in.
Nice.
All right. So we got. I think the stream. Let's see. Everything has come in. So answer is
Pancake block.
Pancake block. Which no, everyone was like making sure you got a flag on that. Chop block. So we had one, two, three, four. We had 4 chop blocks.
I would never.
That's actually an interesting question, because this is kind of, again, I obviously, and this is, I was just running this through my head earlier. Obviously I'm going to ask you a couple anecdotes regarding to Pat Tillman, and I was like, I can't call him, I'm not comfortable calling him Pat, and I'm sure he would punch me in the face if I called him Mr. Tillman. So
no,
I wanted to make sure
no, and I understand it. When you're referring to him, like to people who knew him, it's okay to refer to him as Pat, and I understand that uncomfortability. But for me, anything else seems super weird, right? And so, and I think it's important to note this, and I think most people understand this, and just to where it comes out, where kind of that feeling comes out that people have seen on Twitter about him. I don't mind talking about him, and I certainly don't mind people talking about him, because
of course,
I think obviously the good that has come from his early death has been immense with the foundation. My issue has always been when you use him as a prop to make your argument stronger.
Of course,
if you do that, then your argument's not strong enough to begin with.
Right.
And I think people miss that. Not necessarily, I think most ASU fans get that, but I think people in general miss that point, is that it's not that you can't talk about him. It's that it's about in the right context, right?
Absolutely.
So anyway.
And that's kind of, actually, if you look at the original tweet, I actually did include watchful as one of the terms, because you are definitely very watchful as to how that is. It's definitely something that, I admire, but it's also something, it's like, I try to be mindful of, not from my own tweets, but it's like, okay, making sure everyone else is that's honoring him as much as, we as Sun Devils are, right? So I think that's one of the things that I'm.
And I think it also is important, because of who he is, that people know who he was, as not just how people saw him, but who he was. Like, it just, he was a regular, he was his own person, but I think you could see that in a lot of guys. Jake was his own person. Damian Richardson's is his own person. Jason Simmons is his own person. Like, if you look at that group of people, they are their own people. Gray is as unique and an individual as you will ever find, and as caring and giving as you will ever find. He is, but those are the people, right? And so for us, Pat, he's who we were, right? We were just all buddies, and we just all hung out. And it's not until you look back and you go, oh yeah, that's unusual, or things stand out to you as unusual. One of the stories I tell is when we were traveling, I got to sit next to him because the big guys, O-line and D-lineman, always got the window in the aisle. And then if you were smaller is relative, because like Jeff Polk got a middle seat, you know what I mean? So it's like,
dude, seriously,
because he's a fullback, right? Brutal. So
yeah, that must have been fun.
Oh, so bad. But I got to sit down, and Pat had a whole book of quotes. It was a book that he liked to look. Yeah, he liked it. Nothing.
Was he like journaling them, or was it something that was already?
He was just reading them. Just a massive. I mean, it was a massive, thick book. And I asked him. I said, like, hey, why do you have this book? Like, it's just quotes. He goes, I'd like to see what other people's thought processes are, and kind of where their mind's at, and like, how does that, how can I apply that, or what does that mean to me? And so there was that time, and then there was a time up at Camp Tonazona. I believe it was our senior year, so it would have been 97. He and I sat out on the deck, and just kind of, BS'd for, an hour and a half before we went to bed. And it just, you got to talk about different things that, you weren't, and he was so interested in what you had to say.
Yeah.
That's the thing that always impressed me about him, and Jake too. And I think, and I tell people this all the time, that if you didn't know what Jake looked like, if you were in a room and you didn't know what, that he was you would have an NFL quarterback, you'd have no idea that he
Mm.
played in the NFL, that he played college football, because one, he doesn't look like it, right? But he certainly doesn't act like it.
Okay.
He doesn't act
Got
that
it.
way. It's not, he's as gracious as a famous person as I've ever met. And when you see him in Arizona, and kind of what that fame has taken on for him, it's different. But anyway, so
No,
that those are
that was actually very telling. Was that during the USC game when they were honoring him last year?
Yes.
That was because
Yes.
I think I remember seeing that. I never
Yes.
got to connect with you guys pre-game because I know you guys were on the south side of the stadium, but like we were talking, that was him. It was for him. Yes, he was being honored, but it was for all of you guys around that surrounded him. It was his team that really made it being in that. Like you said, that graciousness really shows.
And I mean, look, it's, as you know, having kids, there's nothing better than when people treat your kids well, right? When people that you respect and people that matter to you treat your kids well. So when
Right.
that weekend, that Friday night, there was a party specifically for Jake, and we went to it. But it was also, I was going to be away I was coaching my daughter's team, and so I was going to be away. So he specifically did a video for her, and we sent it to her that night, so that that he was like, "Hey, good luck tomorrow," and just
That's
thanks
so
for
cool.
lending your dad to me. So it's those kinds of things that, like you said, are very telling about who they are as people. And it's just something that when those things happen, you may not necessarily register them right away, but as time goes on, it's like, yeah, okay, that makes, yeah, I
Got it.
understand, I get it now. And that's how Pat was, and that's how Jake is, and that's how the majority of those guys are. They will, if you really need them, if I really needed,
Oh, I can imagine.
you just make a call, and they'll make sure it happens.
They'll
you
make
know?
sure they'll come up. Paul
Mhm.
Hornstein just shared something. Past year school he worked at was asked to put their alma maters on their door, right? And he had put a picture of a representative of his school, and he put Pat Tillman on his
Yeah,
door at his school. So
I think
outstanding.
it is, and it gives me, like, the stickers and the things of that nature. It gives me an opportunity to connect to the kids that I teach. Those kids don't know who he is, nor why would they?
Right.
They just what you just. I think at times there's an assumption that people should. It's the same thing. Like, if you are in my class and you are going to be a junior, right? You're going to be 16 years old. You were born in 2004, right? That's the year he passed away. Like, it's just,
Yeah.
if you think about it in those terms, like, they weren't that's 3 years past, 2011, 2000 or
Yeah.
2001, which is for them, it's history. It's not something they lived through. So
Right.
it's the same kind of thing. Think of all the things we don't know historically because we didn't live through them. So it's the same idea, but it gives me the opportunity to talk about them, right?
Right.
And
Absolutely.
I have pictures up. I have pictures up of my family. I have pictures up of the guys from Arizona State. Like,
Of
and
course.
so it allows me to talk about more the feeling that we created, not so much like, hey, this is what we did.
Excellent. Amanda had a little Jake Plummer story. One time, Jake managed to casually walk through the crowds at a maroon and gold practice. No one noticed him until she screamed at him in excitement, and then he stopped by and entertained her fangirlness.
He really will he will try really hard to accommodate everybody. But he generally, when he does those things, he likes people, but he also, as I have discovered, me, Keith, Poole, all of us have a little bit where we kind of just need to be off,
Yeah.
away from people. It's part of what makes us, and it's the challenge my wife has with my personality. Part of what, the biggest thing that made me successful is I'm obsessive, right? I'm
Okay.
OCD. I'm obsessive. I like Cazzetto. By my last couple of years, I didn't need Cazzetto to tell me what I did wrong. Like I knew it.
You
I
knew.
knew what I did.
Okay.
And then I would go home and I would, watch the film of it, the TV copy, and obsess about it. But it's what allowed me to have success.
Okay.
But that can be a grating personality when
Yeah.
you want control and you need control and all
Fair.
of those things. So it's, those are things I'm trying to deal with as well that are hard, because it's like anything, when you've had success and ingrained it, you've now got to break it. But
Absolutely.
I'm trying it, but it's a difficult process.
I bet. And to that point, right? And that was another thing, right? Was there a game or a play or a moment where you were beating yourself up, but Pat offered you some, like, was it ever? Because
It
again,
was
obviously
never
he was on the other side of the ball.
because the way, I mean, we were great in that we would all sit at like training table and eat together. But
Okay.
really, when you're on a team, you are super segmented.
Oh,
Like
okay.
you're separated, right? Like the defense takes a bus, offense takes a bus.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? Like you hang out with your linemen. Not that we didn't hang out with the D linemen too, but
Right.
you just hang out with your guy, the offense, more than you do the defense. But who? But I do remember it wasn't Pat. It was Kirk Robertson
Okay.
and Doc. Um, you know, Doc has, for as old man as I am, Doc has been always older than me. But again, he's super successful. He and his wife are dentists up in Flagstaff. They have a dental practice of 50 employees.
Wow.
So yeah, he's crushing it. They're crushing it. But it was him. It was 95. I was at Oregon. We were, I was coming off of, I tore my ACL, but I
Mm.
didn't have surgery. So I missed 3 games and I was coming back and I was super rusty, and I was,
You tore your ACL and you were back in 3 games?
yeah, a little different. Um, I tore it.
I
And
didn't mean to
so,
sidetrack, but I'm like, wow,
no,
that's
that's
cool.
okay. When you tear it, when you're going in for surgery for a pre-op, there's this device that measures the, really the degree distance between, like when you pull your knee apart, right?
Yes,
So
I
you see
remember.
that test, right? So there's this device that measures that, and there's a plus or minus based from that machine that you're going to get from the surgery.
Right.
Basically, when they did that, the plus or minus was within what the surgery would have gotten me. So in other
Oh,
words, it tore, but then my knee scarred enough around it to where it healed it. And I had it scoped at the end of that year, but that's why I was able to come back,
got it.
because I had a brace and everything, but I was getting beat up. Like I was
Mm.
just frustrated. I wasn't having a very good half,
Right.
and I had expressed to Doc, and Doc and I were super close, still are, that, this was not at the game, but earlier, I want to be the best left guard. I think I'm the best. And he just got in my face as we headed into, halftime. Like, you want to be the best? You want to say you're the best off and left guard? Then start playing like it. Okay. And so, and ultimately I had a much better second half, and it was the last time that I got in my head while I played. Like I would get in
Is
my
that what
head.
it was then? Okay.
Yeah, I was just, instead of taking each play and teaching and using it as a learning experience, positive or negative, and then
Right.
applying that information, I was emotional because I was getting beat. I was,
Mm.
I was more embarrassed. I was, not playing well because of my knee. Like all of these things that I was allowing to affect how I played, rather than just playing football and just
Right.
going out and doing the thing that I knew how to do. And that was kind of what, Doc was, that's Kirk's nickname. That's what Doc was telling me. Just like, just play. Just you're fine. Just
And
effing
getting
play.
out of your head. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And again, that's the interesting thing too, because I guess it would, and again, I don't know if I should be using it, but it hamstrung your thinking process in the sense that you were in your head and were you
It hamstrung my playing ability. Yes, I mean, I guess you could ultimately say my thinking process, but it didn't allow me to be the athlete and what I did
okay.
best, which was just play. Just you're
Okay.
thinking, you're you want to be perfect. Like that's the strive. You're striving to be perfect, but you're not going to be perfect. And I needed
Right.
to get out of like the fact that I wasn't being perfect and just say, okay, now let's apply why, like, hey, you did this. What was the counter? So that if you know what's coming, those
Okay.
kinds of things. So yes, that all goes in conjunction. Like the thought process, there shouldn't be much of one. You should be able to recognize, see things, and you're processing based upon your practice, based
We
upon
talked about that, right?
right, based
Okay.
upon the film that you've watched. Because ultimately, when you step on the field, you don't want to think, right, in terms of like from a fundamental standpoint. You want to think, hey, how are they adjusting? What are they doing?
Right.
And so in that way, yes, it hindered me, but ultimately, it I wasn't allowed to get to there because I was so hell bent on trying to fix every little thing and worry about every little thing
Right.
from that, trying to block the guy in front of me. And that's the other problem. You got to get out of, you got to win your one-on-one battle, but you're still within, you know, you're part of the design of a play, right?
Right.
You've watched enough football. 10 guys can do everything right. One guy does something wrong. On offense, the play is screwed up. So
Exactly.
that's the other part. You have to get out of your head as to, oh, this is what's happening to me. And it's like, oh, just do your job, execute your job.
Absolutely. I had a quick question. There's a couple of questions. Paul, I'll ask yours second because Crafty had one in there. It said, Kyle, what are your thoughts on linemen wearing knee braces as a preventative measure? And he sees some teams where the OL has a knee brace and some others don't. So, given your experience, but also, given your new venture, what do you think about those as well?
I think it's, I know a lot of schools will use them because they're so much lighter now than what they were when they were first developed. I mean,
Right.
Donjoy is really the gold standard or the standard that most people wear, and they're super light. And I think they're great. They take some getting used to. It's a lot different than when I played. Like I didn't like them when I played. Again, one, I wore them in high school and couldn't stand them in high school. I just felt
Okay.
super robotic and super stiff, and they slid, and they were. I didn't
They
like
were the
them.
worst because I had one for basketball, and when you started sweating, it just started slipping down, and you're like, ugh.
Right. And so where, and playing at Arizona State, like, hey, great, like I'm going to be doing some sweating. And so I, I, I didn't like them, which is odd because I liked ankle braces. And that was more of a byproduct because I played basketball as well.
Okay.
So, like, even if you look at the captain's picture, like the reason why like it's all black is because those are ankle braces into black shoes. It's not necessarily high tops.
Oh, okay.
I liked about 3/4, and then I liked wearing ankle braces because I also tape my ankles.
Oh, okay.
Because I was so afraid of them. But I didn't like them on the knees for all of those reasons. Now it's different. A lot of schools mandate them again because they're purchasing them and they're so much lighter. It's not the same.
Got it.
The kid that I train has them, and so it's just a matter of you have to train with them and get used to them. But I leave it up to the individual athlete. I think
Right.
what I tell athletes and what I learned from getting hurt is that if you feel someone on your legs, fall. Let go of your block and fall. Just
Oh,
fall down.
interesting.
Just fall down. Like you can like, oh yeah, you may grade out bad or the guy made the tackle or whatever. It doesn't matter. You're healthy enough to play the next play.
Right.
You'll see often is guys kind of, and there's some cases you can't help it, but guys will try to fight through somebody on their legs, right? And or they're standing still, right? And they're in a block and they're
Oh,
engaged and they're not moving anybody, and then a guy falls on them. So I I see it both ways. I see it as a personal preference, but that is something that I've learned again over the last kind of like 2.5 years that when I was coaching, I was too regimented and got to do it this way.
mm-hmm.
More now, it's here are the principles. Now let's put you in the best position for you
Oh, okay. Got
and
it.
who you are as the athlete. So
Absolutely.
a little bit different.
Yeah. Okay. There was another one. We got some good questions in here.
Okay.
There was a interesting one, and we were actually talking about this prior to the show. So, other than what you did today, right? Paul had a question: was there an athlete at ASU that was not on the football team that you became friends with, close or
Absolutely.
otherwise?
Quite a few, or quite a few is not right. A few. So I became really. I had a pretty good relationship with Pat Murphy, the baseball coach.
Yep. Cool.
Obviously, with my name and his name, and like, so that kind of started it. But Pat treated me really well. Like he always treated me great, and so I have a lot of admiration for Pat. Willie Bloomquist and I got
Okay.
along really well.
Yep.
And Willie and I still talk via Twitter a little bit.
Right on.
And then actually the person I became closest with would be Bobby Laser from basketball.
Oh, okay.
Bobby and I, in fact, I was telling this story because I ran into, I got to see Kyle Dodd today down at the beach.
Right on.
And his family. I was telling Kyle that the shoes I have on in that picture, the captain's picture, are actually basketball shoes, and they're from Bobby. Bobby and I swapped them. The shoes I got from the Rose Bowl, the turf shoes that we got, he liked because they were white and maroon.
Okay.
And I gave those to him, and he gave me his hoop shoes. So I played in the Sun Bowl with those hoop shoes, and he actually played in a basketball game. You can go back and a couple at least with those shoes.
That's outstanding.
And Bobby actually, my birthday was June 10th, and every year, he and I don't talk a ton. We would try to see each other when our family goes back. The wives are very close.
Where's he at again? Where's he at now?
He's out in Arizona. They're out.
Okay, cool. Got it.
Gilbert, sorry. But anyway, my wife's correcting me. But he has never missed my birthday. He has wished me he has sent me a text on my birthday for as long as I can remember. So
that's excellent.
I would say, yeah, I mean, Bobby, but I mean, again, I got along really well with Willie. There were some women's basketball players I got along with really well as too. But I would say Bobby's probably the person I closest to.
That's excellent. Now, so someone asked for, so I'm still going to hold back, but someone wanted to hear I don't know if it's your favorite funny Pat Tillman story, but what's a funny Pat Tillman story you have shared before that you enjoy sharing, or that you haven't? For me personally, I would like that you something you've never shared, but that's just because I'm selfish on my show.
I mean, the one that I will always keep, there's one that is near and dear to my heart, but that is a super personal one, and that to me, if I were to share it, feels more like I'm trying to see how cool I am. The best, one of the stories I love telling is, with how Pat's size is, hey, you do a particular drill. It's no longer done, and for good reason. What we call dive drill, which is the old Oklahoma drill.
Okay.
You have
describe it real quick just to make sure.
So you have a running back with the ball. You have a offensive lineman and either a D lineman or a linebacker who has to, and we're basically in shoots, towel shoots.
Right.
And so you only can work through that space. And so you have to go out and make your block. And I'm like, I think this was 95, and I got Pat. And so I'm like, okay, I got this. Like, I'll knock the shit out of him. Like, this would be great. I hit that mother effer, and I swear to God, it was like hitting a brick wall.
Wow.
Literally, I got stoned and was like, okay, well, that's embarrassing. Awesome. He just, because he was all muscle. He had he was literally, I don't know, less than 5% body fat. It was like running into a wall, and it just drilled me, and I was like, okay, well.
I have a GIF of something like that. So there was, and it was I can't remember which game it was, but this U of A lineman, Pat made the play, right? He made the tackle, and he was standing, and then the old lineman, which was trying to kind of come from behind.
That's Frank Middleton.
Is that what it was? Because he kind of tried to get at Pat, and he just kind of turned, and you just see, boom, and he just was on the ground, and Pat's just like, what happened?
Yeah, he basically, if I remember correctly, that was Frank, because it was in the second half. Obviously, that game got a little contentious.
Because you were cleaning their clock.
Well, that, and Gable hit that dude after Jake threw the pick, and Greer. Yeah. That's really what set everything off. But anyway, yeah, and so if I remember correctly, like Pat like felt him coming and basically just kind of stepped back,
Right.
and Frank flew and hit nothing, and Pat just looked down at him like, that seems about right. Yeah.
Yeah, he just kind of rolled off him. It was a brilliant little like. I mean, I keep pointing at it. It's like, yeah, watch this. And he just the other line just ended up on the ground. So seems like you weren't the only one. So don't feel too bad about that one.
Not at all.
That's excellent. So I got another card for you.
Okay.
I'm probably going to use both sides. Fight. No, deep blank. Deep blank. And this actually kind of reminds me. This is actually a good transition because I want to talk about your time at KUPD.
Okay. Yes.
So deep blank because I mean, while you guys start, and I don't remember.
No, yeah.
Yeah. So, but that story that you and I again, you'll know when Dave Pratt. Again, I think what you shared, and it was a conversation. I don't know if it was I can't remember if it was a Sun Devil Summit or something else, but you said that you wheeled Dave Pratt in a wheelchair, and he had a pony keg or just a full keg in there in his wheelchair.
Not he. That was. I don't remember the keg part. I remember. I mean,
I just remember you were sharing that everyone got lit.
Everybody got lit. That was yes. That he didn't. He asked me if I would come in a dress. I said I would.
Okay.
So I came out in full on like moo dress and like sneakers. It was hilarious. And I did this. He would have his concerts. But the great part was and this is a story my wife tells. So we were in the round. I don't remember the name of the bar, but Dave had a Valentine show, Celebrity Theater. That's what it was. It was Celebrity Theater. So it was in the round, and her dad was with us, as was Mike Barnes. And it turned, as a KUPD crowd can, it gets super rowdy, and somebody throws a beer, and that beer hits me. And you have never seen, not me, nor Mike, my wife, girlfriend at the time, flew basically up 3 flights of stairs and choked, had the woman by the throat.
She beat it on the person that threw it.
Oh, she found her and started choking her. And I had to tell her, I was like, honey, stop. And her dad was like, who is this? And what?
Yeah.
It was quite impressive.
That is, I can envision it. And I was like, I'm sure when you probably just saw the red and you're like, I got to go save this other person's life.
And that's basically what happened. I said, if I don't intervene, this person, and it's not so much save that person's life as I don't want to deal with jail. Like jail's going to be bad.
That's exactly that's the way it is. It translates from jail to now. It's like I've told you this story. That's why, Mrs. Jedi ASU is on the same phone as I am, because I don't want to deal with tech support calls. I don't want her to just like her throwing something at me. It's like, it works. It works and it's good. So what is your answer? Deep blank.
Purple.
Dang, deep purple. Let's see who we got on there. Paul's. Oh, let's see, Randy. Let's see. Look at purples. Look at me with an S. That's what I get for not looking at the keyboard when I'm typing. So yeah, it's, I guess Randy's still in the lead with 2 so far. So that's all right. We got Doug Sells has one. That's right. Dustin Waters got it with purple too. Mike Wren, shout out Peggy for ASU. He said deep doo-doo. Oh, well, that would have been well too. That would have been all right.
When you have kids.
Exactly. So how long were you at? So KUPD, I only got to listen when I came to Phoenix, because living down south in the other town, for some reason, it's almost as if the signal never went past Picacho Peak. So it wasn't until I crossed Picacho Peak could I actually hear KUPD. So they always had this little knockoff down there, KLPX. It was on 96.1, and so that was the only station that we had for rock, for rock and metal and everything else. But with KUPD, it's almost as if it covered the whole state except for that patch. But how long were you at KUPD and how did you get in?
So I got in because that's my degree, broadcast journalism. And so I had been listening to Dave. This was 95. And, Dave is, a huge ASU fan, and
Right.
and so, but we were going to go play Nebraska. Nebraska was coming off the '94 win, and had everybody back basically, and
Right.
so he was basically telling us, ASU is going to get the floor wiped with them, and this and that. And I'm like, whoa, an
What year
email
was this again? This was
this is
the.
95. This is
Okay, got
95.
it. At
So,
Nebraska. Okay.
right, at Nebraska, that game.
Everyone, brace yourselves because that's going to bring up some memories too. So I don't want to hear complaining.
So that's what leads into 96. So
That's right.
95, no 96. So anyway, he I email him and I say, hey dude, like, here you are, this ASU fan, you tell me, and you're not picking us to win. What the hell?
You emailed him?
I yeah.
Or did you
I
write
think-
him?
No, I think email was just starting.
It was
like,
just starting. I remember. That's why I asked.
Because I emailed him, because I didn't write him. I remember emailing him.
Got it.
So I said something else like, "Hey, I'm a broadcast journalism major. I would love
Okay.
to come down and watch you work." And he responded and said, "Yeah, that'd be great." And so I went down and I watched from 5:30, which is when his show started, from
Okay.
basically 5:30 to 10. And I wasn't on that time. I just watched and wanted to see
Okay.
him operate. And for those who don't know, radio normally has a 7-second delay. So what you hear, which is why they ask you to turn your radio down all the time.
Oh, got it. Right.
There's that, and plus the feedback. So those two reasons. So, but Dave never at KUPD never had the 7-second delay, ever.
Oh,
which
that's
cost
funny.
me later on when I said the F word live on the radio, which was
Did
great.
you get did the what was it? Did you get the Saturday Night Live? What's that guy that got fired from Saturday Night Live? Did that cost you too?
No, it did not.
Okay,
Dave
at
said,
least
don't worry about it. I'll eat it if there's a fine.
Got it.
So then I said, okay. From there, so I watched the entire show, and then we obviously lost, and he kind of ribbed me back because he had even said that, hey, an ASU player emailed me, and he brought me on the air just via radio
okay.
first, and then let me come down and visit, and then I started coming in like the last hour of the show, and he said, hey, I got this great idea, like, what's your favorite band? Or he said, what's your favorite band? I said, Metallica. Oh, I kind of got this great idea. Murphy's Metallica moment at that point was basically kind of born, and he would let me pick any of their songs, didn't matter how long.
Right on.
Didn't matter anything. So he would just, like one time I picked Creeping Death, which is almost 7 minutes, one which is almost 8 minutes. And he never.
Yeah, and that's like dangerous in radio. It's like you got to be. Yeah.
And so I would always pick. I still do their music well enough to know which, most of their songs don't have swearing. The live ones all do, so you don't play a bunch of live ones, that kind of stuff. But even then, he said he didn't care, and so I would. And so that then blossomed into he wanted me there. He's like, hey, you can come in. I had asked, hey, do you mind if I come in earlier? And then that progressed from 5:30. So I was in for the last hour, and then I started coming in at 5:30, and then I lasted from 5:30 to 10 every Friday.
Wow, you were doing the whole show.
Whole show for my last 2 hours.
That's cool.
My last 2 years. My last 2 years, I was on KUPD every Friday, basically 5:30 to 10.
Now, because you were Metallica Murphy, when they came to town, were you like meeting the band and everything else like that?
I didn't meet the band, but
Dave thinking, what's up with that?
I think the statute of limitations is long past. He gave me tickets. Like KUPD hooked me up with CDs, tickets, movie tickets.
Yeah, that's fair.
I went to Lollapalooza. I went to Ozfest. I got to see Metallica in Pit Row. And so I got to do a whole bunch.
Got it.
And even Dave wanted to sponsor us because we had Thursday night O-line dinners.
Okay.
And so he wanted to sponsor us, and I said, you can't because it's an impermissible benefit.
Yeah, exactly.
So
he's a shadow bag man anyway.
Yeah. So the movie tickets and those things sufficed because he wanted to do more, but I wouldn't let him.
There was only so much that you could then.
And I didn't want to take the chance, like, he does something for us, someone rats us out, and we get in trouble. Now, for buying some dinners. That's just didn't seem worth it to me.
Yeah, you can't even. What was a? If you feel comfortable answering this, which one was a worst concert you went to?
I don't think there was a one. I mean, the Lollapalooza that had Devo and Soundgarden was the Soundgarden part was great. The
Okay.
Devo people, were not into
What year was
Devo.
that?
90. I think Kelly went with me, so I think that was 99.
Yeah, they weren't out of
99.
circulation long enough.
And so
It was a bad 80s flashback, yeah.
No, I think it was Lollapalooza Devo. Okay, so then it was Lollapalooza, and people, the fans weren't feeling Devo, and Soundgarden came out, and Chris Cornell was pissed. How dare you treat this band this way?
Yeah,
Have some
exactly.
respect. So I mean, that was probably like the worst experience, but even that, the show was great.
Right.
Everything that I went and saw was usually the music at that time I was listening to.
So
because
it was.
I didn't have to pay for it. It was like, even if it wasn't great, like
Exactly.
Again, I think I've seen Metallica 6 or 7 times, and 5 of those times were because of KUPD. So
Okay.
hard to be. I
Yeah.
got to see Tool. I got to I basically got to see a bunch of bands. Kid Rock, saw
Okay.
Limp Bizkit. Got to see all of that.
What big band did you see before they were big? Because
Godsmack.
Really?
I saw Godsmack at the Mason Jar.
Wow.
It was tiny. I remember. It's so funny because in Kelly.
Because that was my next question about local bars, like which haunts you would go to. But Mason Jar, go ahead.
Yeah. So Kel and I had just started dating, and I'd heard about Godsmack and really liked their first song, whatever, that had been playing on KUPD, and they were coming to town, and KUPD put my name on the list, and I'm like,
okay,
I don't know, because it wasn't really at that time music that she had been listening to. I said, I think I'm going to go. So I went, and I had never been to the Mason Jar before that. And I walked in, hey, I'm on the list. Okay, they walked, and I came in, and I'm like, holy hell, this place is tiny. And then they played, and it was an unbelievable concert. And
that's cool.
And I've loved them ever since. Really like that band a lot.
You knew them before then, yeah.
Yeah, it was. It was Mason Jar is just tiny.
Exactly.
I've never been in anything that small since.
Well, before I ask you about some of the haunts that you would go to back in the day, so Wesley Franco's out there. He said he would run shows with Charles Barkley, and they'd have to have a 14-second delay, so then this way they could do 2 7-second dumps. And he was like, he did it. He was like, they started running out of dumps, and they had to go straight to break. So I'm like, all right, that'd be all right. He was something special for Phoenix. So yes, Sir Charles, he was definitely something special for Phoenix. So that would be good. And Crafty's saying that NC2A is going to call you, even though it's 20 plus some odd years before they. So there's definitely a statute of limitations there. So, and that's always a popular thread on Twitter, right? Because we always talk about Mill, right, and how Mill is and everything else, and going to the Q Club and El Jefe and whatever else used to be open there, and it was always $200 bottle services and everything else. Where we're talking about, you could go to Club Rio with $20 and get ripped on $5 Long Islands. They're a damn pitcher. They're not this little fancy. They're a damn pitcher that you can get. So, like, where would be some of the places you would go to while you were there in Tempe as well? Not only as part of a team, but just even on your own.
Well, I mean, again, old man, I barely went out in college.
Okay.
It wasn't until after college that, and again, Kelly tells this story a lot. She goes, would go to Cluck U, or no, excuse me, Thirsty Beaver. She'd go to Thirsty
Both
Beaver.
Are fantastic. Oh, yes.
Right. Thirsty Beaver was, $3 pitchers on Thursday nights. And so I didn't want to go out. That wasn't my scene. And she looked at me and was like, okay, that's fine.
Yeah. Bye.
I'm going out. Like, I had a life before you, and I'm going to continue my life. And so,
that's funny.
started joining her and realized how much fun it was and had a great time. So probably, I mean, Maloney's would be the only place during college, but
Okay.
after college, it would be the Thirsty Beaver. I mean, we went to Cluck U a few times, went to the Vine, went to
We're gonna have to go back to the Vine. It's still there, man. And the only reason it's still there, right, is because it's between this fancy schmancy new dorm and a gas station. So it's like not enough room for ASU to like, okay, we're gonna sweep this lot
right,
up. It's like, no, that's gonna be there for a while.
forever. And so, and then obviously, once, when Pat passed, then Rula Bula became a big place that we all,
Yes.
would visit. But I mean, Thirsty Beaver was probably the
That was a
haunt.
one.
I mean,
That was a main haunt.
the stories coming out of there, and the things we do in our youth that we should not be doing. Yeah,
How are we still alive? Right?
exactly.
How are we still alive? Despite ourselves, we are still alive,
A
right?
story that I'm neither proud of nor should be duplicated. We were at a wedding, and it was one of Kelly's closest and best friends. She went to ASU. She now lives, her husband and family, they live in Switzerland.
Okay.
But we were at their wedding, which it wasn't in Phoenix. It was, I forget, where was Stormy's wedding? It was in Mesa, but it was off in a ranch that wasn't, yeah, it wasn't heavy.
It's probably a
population.
subdivision now.
Right, something like that. So, we have a great time and blah, blah, blah. And, we wake up the next morning and I'm like, hey, thanks for driving home. Kelly looks at me and goes, I didn't drive. And I went, okay, well, that's not
I have one of those stories too. I actually have one of those stories. Someone broke up with me, and so I was doing a big pitcher of beer, and then I was doing double shots of Gold Rush. It's like a gold with the flakes in it.
Oh yeah. Oh no.
And and that was I was actually working. I was a bouncer at a bar, so we didn't start drinking till like 2. Because last call was at 1 back in the dark ages for all of you.
I remember.
And so then, exactly, for all you that were not born in the 1900s, we would have 1 o'clock last call, so we would clear out and everything else. So we got to this house party and we started drinking at like 2:30, and like about 5:30 something, whatever it was, okay, I gotta go. And I just remember, I don't know how. I mean, again, I shouldn't be alive right now, but I got home and then I woke up and I'm like, damn, I feel good. I went and played basketball. Actually, it was probably about 8:30, 9 o'clock again, and then all of a sudden, I just like the alcohol poisoning kicked in. I was like, and that was I don't think I remember Sunday, Monday, or Tuesday after that. So yeah, it was bad news. Again, I kept going. So yeah, it was funny. But yeah, so I'm just go ahead.
I was going to say, that's a Rip Fuel story for me. You remember Rip Fuel? Remember that?
Yes. Go ahead.
Okay. So, so I played in a semi-pro league down in Alabama.
Okay.
It was 99 because I had back surgery in 98, which is,
okay.
I got picked up by the Raiders, couldn't pass their physical because of the bulging disc in my back. So once I had surgery, I wanted to go and prove that I could still play.
Of course.
Picked me up. So, but we had a bus trip from, this was in Mobile, Alabama, by the way. So if you've never
Congrats.
if you've never been to Alabama, that's an experience. And if you've never been to Mobile, that's a whole nother experience. And so we had a game against a team that was in Charleston, West Virginia. So we took the bus from Mobile, Alabama to Charleston, West Virginia.
That's like the coast at the bottom up.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
It's a 16-hour bus ride. So we leave early enough to where when we get there, it's Friday almost Friday evening. And so they're like, hey, and so your clock's all off, right? And we play Saturday. So so the next day.
It must have been a dot of a town, so.
I mean, again, this was a semi-pro league that I was playing down in Mobile. Like the stories from there are just, there's a lot of great, but there's a lot of weird.
So then we will do another episode.
Yeah. So, but your system is all off, right?
Right.
Based on when you slept. And so I take not one rip fuel like any normal human. I took two.
Oh,
So this was pregame, so played the entire game, drove 16 hours home right after the game, right on the
you
bus.
drove
The bus.
the bus. Okay, you're in the bus. Okay, got it.
But I read, I think I brought like 7 magazines. I read every magazine cover to cover. We get home, again, a 16-hour bus ride. We get home and it has to be 11:15 at night, I think. I immediately get home and then I drive to the gym and I work out for another like hour and a half.
Damn.
And then I came home and then I finally crashed. But I took rip fuel one time, said never again.
And you did it twice. You doubled up on it.
Yep. I'm out.
I used to do that when I would drive to Arizona from the Bay Area, and I'd do 2 Red Bulls, and I'm like, my heart didn't explode.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm like, exactly. So we got Doug Sells throwing out some 298 Long Island pitchers at the Devil's House.
Yeah.
Which, $5 at Club Rio, of course. Devil's House. That's at that, I don't know what, there's a Denny's and a hotel there now. It was behind that. What is that? That's not, what was that radio?
That's right. That Denny's, we frequented that Denny's. I'm sure you have.
Yeah, exactly. That was actually a really good one, but I can't remember.
Kelly
There was
an
an Audio Express. Audio Express was boom.
Audio Express.
Dude, I had to dig for that one. So if I pass out, it's because I had to dig that memory out so deep.
Right next to Club Rio, is that the one?
It's where it was, right? Absolutely.
Exactly where that,
totally. Yeah, that's where it was back there. So
I got a stereo from there.
Which brand?
Alpine.
Of course, that's what you got to buy from there.
Here's a quick story. So I had my father's Blazer was my first car.
Okay.
And he had the oversized wheels. I dropped him off at the airport. I was driving on the 202, getting ready to exit onto rural.
Okay.
Right. I was about a half a mile from that exit. My right front tire shot off.
Yes. Just like it's like a movie. Just the car.
It shot off. Went into the left lane. Luckily, there was no car. And then drifted back into the pull off lane. I had to walk. This was in the summer, by the way.
Yeah, it's always in the summer.
It was about 150 to 200 yards ahead of me. So I had to go get it, put it on my back, walk back to my car. And I was headed to my summer school class. And I was like, I called my teacher, professor, like, yeah, I'm not going to make it. Well, why not? Yeah, my right front tire just shot off my car. Oh, sure it did. And I handed the phone to the mechanic. Could you please tell my professor what happened? Yeah, it was the craziest thing is his right front tire shot off. And then she gave the phone back to me. Okay, just, make sure you make up the work or whatever it was.
Exactly. And you're the only 6'5" person in the metro area that would be actually carrying an oversized tire on your damn back like this. Because the rest of us would be pushing it, huffing it, and you're just like this. Yeah, it's no big deal. So yes, Devil's House became Club Rio. So outstanding. Now I'm gonna make you do If You Had To.
Okay.
So I got 2 questions for you. I think I got 10 cards here, so 5 situations. Everyone, if you still have questions for Sir Kyle, please ask them in the chat. But I got 2 cards for you.
Okay.
It's snowing in your house all the time, or be sticky all the time and not know why.
Oh, dude, be snow in my house all the time. Are you kidding me? Being sticky's awful. Like
you're okay with the cold.
I'd much rather be cold than sticky. Like
I understand.
I was in Alabama, May, June, and July.
That's a whole different planet, man.
Dude, I'm telling you, the best thing was the crawfish fries afterwards. But it is
that must have been brilliant, though.
Oh, amazing. So we played at where the Senior Bowl is held.
Yeah, of course.
That's where we played. That was our home stadium.
Oh, okay.
So we were the Mobile Admirals.
Okay.
And actually, Brian Prophy, who played at Arizona State.
Okay.
Brian passed away, unfortunately, a few years ago. Brian played with us, played with me down there.
Okay.
Lanzino, who was the GA my senior year, was
Ah.
the offensive line coach, which is why he actually called me and needed an lineman and brought me out. Anyway,
Oh, okay, got it.
it was they had converted the parking lot into a practice field. I remember getting in my stance and there was bottle caps and glass. I got bit by a brown recluse twice.
Tell me that. Share that story, because you told
Okay.
me about that. That's some serious shit.
So it's a crazy story. So I was on the phone. So anytime I played, and obviously playing where it's super hot and humid, and the same thing at Arizona, I would get at least just once a year, I'd get a boil. So not a zit, but a boil.
Right.
And so it wasn't unusual. And I had what I thought was one on my right arm. And so I was, talking to Kelly and we're having a conversation, and I squeezed it, trying to pop it, thinking that if I popped it, it would release because it was just so cumbersome. And about a couple minutes later, I'm having the conversation, and I tell Kelly, I'm like, man, I don't feel very good. I feel terrible. And she's like, oh, huh. And kind of asked me what I did, and I explained. And she goes, oh, okay. She goes, do you have a red streak going up your arm? I go, I do. How do you know that? She goes, yeah, that's the venom or the poison in your system, and it's going directly to your heart. You need to go to the hospital right now, like right now. So I hung up with her, and so she diagnosed me from Arizona to I was in Alabama, and I went to the hospital ER, and they.
And it wasn't a video call.
No.
Kids don't even know.
No, they don't even know.
You probably had a long distance card for that nonsense too.
I didn't have a long distance card, but it was long distance. And so I immediately called my trainer. My trainer took me to the ER. They checked me into the ER, or they checked me into the hospital. I had surgery the next day.
Wow.
Which was I got bit by a brown recluse, which was necrotizing, which it basically deteriorates your muscle from the inside out. So took care of that, and then they found the other bite that they needed to treat, which was on my stomach.
There was another one.
Yeah, there's two. And so the one on my arm, when it was at its peak, like when they had just had surgery, you could basically take two quarters and stack them in that wound. That's how wide it was and how deep it was. And then the one on my stomach was so thick that those big long Q-tips would go 3/4 of the way down.
You got a COVID-19 instead of up your nose. It was
exactly.
That's wicked.
I don't know if you can see, but like
we can see that. Yeah, I see that scar.
Yeah. So it healed super nice. But yeah, man, I was in the hospital on my birthday in Mobile, Alabama by myself. But it's her, my wife's, my mother-in-law, who's no longer with us, but my mother-in-law sent me a care package, which was sweet. She made cookies for me. So it was cool. But it was just a big learning experience for me. I met some great people.
Right.
But I mean, we were in our apartment complex, and it was, I think, like 7 a.m. And all of a sudden we heard, get down, get down, get down. I look out my window, and a SWAT team was attacking the apartment complex next to us. Oh, God. Where am I and what am I doing?
Exactly. What is going on here?
But yeah, the crawfish fries were amazing. Basically, we would play at home, and then after the game, you would just, they would have it all ready, and you'd come sit at a picnic table and
eat on newspaper, and you're set.
Yep. And
that's on my list, man. I still want to do that.
It was amazing. And there's parts of the South I want to go back to, like, I want to go back to Louisiana. I want to go to a game at LSU.
Yep.
Right? All of those things. I don't need to go to Florida. Good. Been there.
We get enough of Florida.
But there are, it's just, you really see, it's a different way. It's just not
totally
good or bad, just different, just slower, not as advanced as other pieces. And it's funny because
Very
from Mobile,
absolutely not progressive. You're absolutely
yeah,
right. Yeah, there's a whole,
um,
yeah, for sure.
and you can drive, which is weird because you can drive from Mobile to Biloxi, and Biloxi, Mississippi. There's gambling, right? There's
Oh,
there's
that's
all of
right.
that. So it's really odd to be in Mobile, which is when I was there again, and part of it's because of hurricanes, but stoplights are still on wires, right? There's no big Applebee's and Chili's are your big places to choose or where you want to
Wow.
go. It's right, all of those things. But then you go to Biloxi and it's gambling and it's all of that. So
A lot more
it, it was
interesting.
it was really good for me in that I got to prove that I could still play, that my back was healthy enough, but and then also learning about a different part of the United States. I mean,
Right.
I got to play in Mississippi, I got to play in Georgia, I got to play in New Orleans, got to play in West Virginia. So all places that I wouldn't not. I mean, I've been to
Of
Georgia
course.
before, but places I wouldn't have gone without that semi-pro league.
Absolutely. Paul Hornstein shared that you and his youngest son share a birthday. So happy
Oh,
birthday to both of you. That was
yes.
actually outstanding. I'm going through some of the questions here.
Okay.
Let's see, 14 seconds up. Someone actually had a question. Let me ask you this question here, and then I'll find the other one. Will Jasper asks, going back to O-line play, what's more valuable as a trait, footwork or hand placement?
Footwork.
Why?
Ultimately, think of it this way: when anything we everything is ground up. Everything we
Okay.
do is from the ground up. So yes, is having great hands great? Sure. But ultimately you need feet. Everything comes from
Okay.
the ground. Where, how you position yourself, the direction you want to move, all of that comes from that place. So that's where you start. Kind of like what we do is it's not just, hey, we're training you as an offensive lineman. We teach you about strength, and there's different kinds of strength. There's absolute strength, there's relative strength. We teach you about mobility,
Okay.
stability, flexibility, right? So often we're caught up in flexibility, right? Oh, you got to
Mm,
be more quote unquote flexible. Well,
right.
true to a degree, but think of a rubber band.
Mm-hmm.
If you stretch a rubber band too far, what happens?
Snaps.
Or it loses.
Or
It's
it
either
loses
that.
its elasticity. Okay.
So it's one of two, right? Either or is bad because it's now no longer functionable. Well,
Right.
stretching is the same thing. You don't want to stretch too much because then your muscles don't become they
Mm,
become over over stretched.
right.
Oh, and the elasticity is no longer there.
Okay.
Really, what we're talking about most times is mobility, right? So flexibility is the
Okay.
ability to stretch or the ability to be flexible. Mobility is the ability to move through angles.
All
And
right.
so when we walk, that's mobility. And
Yes.
oftentimes we talk about, oh, his hip strength or his, flexibility is bad. Nah, really what it could be a strength issue, it could be a mobility issue.
Mm,
So we do
okay.
all of those things, but everything is centered from the ground up, basically.
Always from the ground up. Excellent. Hopefully that helped, Will. Other question, and again, I apologize who asked
Sure.
this one, and I may have asked you this one too while we were chatting. Where, other than Sun Devil Stadium, what is your favorite stadium to play in? And then of those stadiums that you've played in, which was the worst or least favorite?
Great questions. Besides Sun Devil Stadium, my favorite stadium to play in was probably I mean, it's kind of twofold. From a
Okay.
field aspect, it would be the Rose Bowl, just and not necessarily the '97 Rose Bowl. The field, the stadium, playing at the Rose Bowl. The field
Okay.
is immaculate.
Is it artificial or is it real?
It's real.
I don't.
It's
Okay,
it's
got it.
grass. It's
I
grass.
wasn't sure. Okay.
No, it's okay. I mean, obviously, it, it's second to ASU's grass field.
Okay.
And then as far as it just overall aesthetic of playing in a stadium, UW Stadium is unreal. Like
That's on my list. I want to
dude,
be. I want to go.
you're on you're right on the water. The overhang makes it super loud because all
That
those seeds
whole
are,
thing.
yeah, right. So it all reverberates down.
Right.
It's actually something that I'm really good at, is I can be in a room of people and be so focused on what is being said
Okay.
that I can't hear anybody else. And that is a byproduct of how, Coach Gazzetto forced us that we didn't have a silent count. There was no, he goes,
Okay.
I'm not, no, there's no silent count. He goes, you know your quarterback's voice, focus in on his voice.
Oh, interesting.
So and you can train, it's like anything else. You can train it. It takes time. But I
So
can
I
do
didn't mean
that.
to interrupt you, but then so if you were if you like at a tailgate or in a crowded
Let me give you
mall.
an example. Here's a perfect example. So
Go ahead.
you know the show Billions?
Yeah.
Okay. So I was watching the last episode of Billions, and at the very last minute, in the background is a Metallica song. It's
Okay.
I don't remember what Bobby Axelrod said because I was so focused on the song, which I've heard numerous times.
Right.
But I just didn't. I heard him talking, but I couldn't tell you what the words are because
Yeah.
I was so focused on the song.
And to that point, right? Given a similar situation, there's all kinds of craziness going on. Would you be able to hear Jake call your name or say do something?
Good point. Good question. And if you say, this happens all the time, and it drives my wife crazy. She can go, Kyle, 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 Murph.
That's us.
As soon as she says Murph, I will react and respond every single time without fail.
Okay.
Never takes two. But if she says Kyle, she could say Kyle 10 times. I won't hear her. She like, hey Kyle, hey
Yeah,
Kyle.
yeah, of course.
But as soon as she says Murph, again, it's because it's how I was, right? Like everything. That's my nickname. People didn't call me Kyle. People called me Murph. Like it's just you're Murph.
Right.
You're Murph. I mean, going back to Bobby Laser, that's a funny story. When Kelly and his wife, a girlfriend at the time, Danielle, started first hanging out, my wife would call me Kyle. And the first time that happened, Danielle was like, who's Kyle? Bobby had only referred to me as Murph. Ever.
Yeah.
So anyway, I can focus in. So UW would be my favorite. The worst place to play, and it's not really the place, the worst fans have been Oregon. Oregon
Still
fans
interesting.
The worst. Like, and I've said this.
So they were entitled back then too.
Oh, I told this story. I don't know if you follow Bomani Jones. Bomani works for ESPN and has his podcast. And so I actually got called in to Bomani's show and on the voicemail, and he used it. And it was talking about, unruly fans. And so when we played Oregon in '94, we had lost. They had beat us to clinch their Rose Bowl trip. And so the fans rushed the field, and there was a bunch of, they spit on some of our guys. They were telling our guys to F off, right? And all of this. And so one of them made the mistake of telling Pat Thompson to F off.
Oh, God.
So Pat grabbed him and punched him right in the face. Now, luckily, right?
Anyone see it?
No. Well, I'm sure someone did, but there's no one from ASU did, and no one complained.
It's still hearsay, and even though on this show it's still hearsay.
Exactly. So, and they just have always been like, I'm all for competition, and it's hard. Part of it is like U of A, you're apart from the fans because of that track, right? So you're not right on top of them, so you don't necessarily hear everything that's going on. Whereas with Oregon, they are right there. They're right on top of you, and they are relentless.
Yeah.
Entire game, and I get that, but they start getting into territory where it's just like, it's not you're trying to psych somebody out or you're trying to get in their head. You're just trying to be mean and be.
Yeah, you're being malicious now.
Right.
It must be unreal in the world of social media. Then I guess that's why players protect their accounts. Then.
Well, and I'll be 100% on. I mean, if we go back to, that earlier conversation, that the obsessive part of me would have I couldn't have an account. Like there's no way as a player while I was in college, I could have a Twitter account because I would
Okay.
obsess over what people are saying because I wasn't, it's only recently that I'm able to move on, that their opinion doesn't matter at 18, from 18 to 22. Well, why do they think that? What do I need to do? Like, what's
Mm,
this? Or I wouldn't have been mature enough not to get in an argument with them.
okay.
And that's probably more of what I would fear is like, hey, you're an effing moron who doesn't know what you're talking about. I mean, I do
Right.
that now still, with people who, oh, the scholarship is free. It's not. It's
No.
it's cool to say that, right? And it's a great talking point, but that's kind of those things. Those are the things that drive me insane. That again, it's a lack of knowledge, and I'm okay explaining, like, hey, you
Of
don't
course.
know, you haven't experienced it, that's fine. But to tell me I'm wrong with that, no, it's not, it's free. Okay, well, then I'm going to have an issue with it,
Yeah.
and that would have been really difficult for me to do, to separate like who I am as a person versus what I, playing. It just, I, the, the difference is too, though,
Mm-hmm.
these guys now are growing up with it. So it's not something that is unique to them when they get to college. Whereas kind of, with email and things of that nature for us, that was
Right.
all, new, and we're trying to experience it. And what is this? And how do we
Figuring it out. Yeah,
figuring it out? How do
absolutely.
we best, you know, how do we use it to our advantage, or all of those things, right? Whereas they have gotten more of a steady diet of that.
Yeah, okay.
That said, even as a high school player, do, I mean, and I've said this, not even as a player, like, can you imagine yourself? Just think of yourself as a teenage boy with a computer in your pocket. Like
People don't.
I don't know that. I mean, and I think it's why it's so lazy for people to say, "Oh, kids of today." Really? I'm pretty impressed if kids can accomplish things with a computer in their pocket,
Yeah.
that they have access to videos and rabbit holes that we only dreamed of. I mean, this. We as as young kids were dreaming of the HBO or Skinamax, right? The, oh, what
Exactly.
can I what can
Oh,
I
I saw
see?
something. It cleared up.
you know, versus and I can readily admit this, like that the time that, hey, you might change cable stations and they may give you the Playboy channel for free, like,
Exactly.
hey,
Yeah, there we go.
and
But
instead they have all that access to them at their fingertips. Like, I can't. That's
that's what I tell everyone, especially my youth groups. I'm like, you have access to the knowledge of the entire planet right here. You
Mhm.
don't have to go to Club Hayden. You don't even probably know what a Dewey Decimal System is. You
Right.
don't even probably have to even open a book, even though there's a kind of a hipster vibe where all books smell good, but you don't have to go through all that. You don't have to cite your sources from an
Right.
actual book or magazine or research paper or something else, right? It's all here, and
Right.
there's apps in there that gives you all that. So no, absolutely, that's definitely, what is it? A digital deluge. That's constantly what they're getting
Right. And
from
it's
everywhere.
so, and what it's like any new technology, instead of denouncing it or saying kids don't know what to do with it, teach them, show them,
Right.
right? How do you use it to benefit, to meet people, to
Absolutely.
create relationships, to create new business ventures or ideas. Like, again, I have a broadcast journalism degree that I've worked for, ASU. I worked for KMVP. I worked for Fox Sports Arizona, but there wasn't podcasting and YouTube
Right.
channels and streaming. There, none of that. There are a myriad of ways in which you can reach people,
Yes.
and you don't have to have necessarily been taught it. You can teach yourself.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. And so those opportunities are there. It's just a matter of, will you take advantage of them? And so, again, that's part of what I've learned over the last several years is no, kids are pretty resourceful. Kids are doing a lot. We're just, we need to recognize what they're doing and adjust, as opposed to, oh, it wasn't this way. Oh,
Right.
it's, you don't know. It's it's our generation's equivalent of our parents saying, well, I walked to school uphill both ways in the snow. The
Exactly.
hyperbole of it, but it's still the same. People think kids are soft because they have phones. No, kids are soft, quote unquote, because they don't have any confidence. Like,
Mm,
and that's the thing I've learned the most. Toughness and is bred out of confidence. You are
okay.
tough because you're confident, right? Because you have the knowledge or whatever it is to
Mm,
forge on, because you feel confident in what you know or what you
right.
can do. So people go, oh, you're mentally tough. Look at all what you've overcome. Sure. And there's an aspect of it, but we get too centered on, oh, kids aren't tough enough. Really? I don't know, man. Kids are going through a lot. No different. United States been in a war, right?
Right.
2001 or 2002. Been in overseas. Like, there's a lot going on that they have to deal with. As you said, that deluge of
Absolutely.
information, of stuff, of people being able to bully them, of people being able to comment on them
Yeah.
and rip them, and all of these things. So when adults go, oh, they don't teach them how it
Right.
can be a tool. It's Then we've wasted that opportunity. No different than if a librarian doesn't teach you how to use the Dewey Decimal System. It's
Right.
just, yeah, you can hunt and peck and figure it out, right? In terms of finding the book you want, but it's just going to super inefficient,
Absolutely. If you know the
right?
system, then you can go straight to where you want and then move on, and then you're not wasting time.
And that ultimately what it comes down to is adults' insecurities, because
Mm,
kids now can challenge them, right? It can no longer be do as I say, not as I do.
no,
Why?
exactly.
Right. You can't, because I can look that information up and go, hey, mom, hey, dad, you're wrong. Right. Or,
Exactly.
hey, coach, you're wrong. You can't do the old bullshit a bullshitter. Like, you can't do that.
And they're very good at that. They can
Right.
read that now.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And so what it what so you have two options. You have two paths. Either grow and learn and become a partnership, or keep keep talking about how kids don't do this, or kids aren't this, or kids aren't that.
Right.
Nah, it's no different. Kids are a byproduct of what they're taught,
Right.
right? If they're taught well,
Absolutely.
and they're taught the right, how to be decent to humans and all of those things, then they will be. If they're taught that their phone and their computer and their device is a tool that needs to be respected, then
Yes.
then they will.
Think of it that way instead of actually something that defines your existence.
Right.
Absolutely.
But that's up to the parents, and but that takes work, as this. Like, it's easy to say, yeah, okay, guys, go on your device. It's hard to say, okay, you have a limited amount of time on your device,
Right.
or
Absolutely.
not
And
today,
enforcing
or
that.
right, and enforcing it. And that's hard, because it makes your life as a parent harder. It just, and
There's
nobody,
more to take on. Yeah.
right, and nobody gets up in the morning and goes, hey, let's make my life harder, right? Like, it's not,
Exactly.
but you have to as Doug shared with me on Twitter, and as he has shared um, with everybody that follows him, he learned, like, you're not making good kids, you're making good adults.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's what you're making. And so you have to look at it again from the macro, and it's the same thing from everything is parallel. It's the same thing with an offensive line athlete. It's the same thing with any football player.
Okay.
It's why we like Herm, because it's not just about football. It's about the individual, right?
Right.
It's empowering those kids. It's not just using those kids. It's a two-way street, and it has to be. If it can be seen that way, then it can be used that way.
Absolutely. And
You
that's
know,
actually what you brought up, with the way Herm talks about them, right? And it talks about and is able to work it. For a while, there was always talk about that ASU wasn't as welcoming. Is ASU more welcoming now?
absolutely.
Okay. What
So
were the dark times? Like, when was it? Like, was there an era that was the
yeah,
dark
I
times?
mean, it didn't happen to me, but you know, from what I understand, Cutter wasn't very receptive to alumni. Um, Again, I didn't experience that, but I mean, to be fair, while I was coaching, I didn't. I'm much
Okay.
more involved since 2014. Since I joined Twitter, I'm much more involved with ASU football than I was from probably 2001 until 2014.
Okay.
I followed, I paid attention, but I was, my daily existence was with my own team, right?
Yeah.
It was 7 days a week. That's where all of my attention
Right.
was poured. And I never got to come, like, I very rarely got to come home for game, like, or come to Arizona for games because I was in my own season.
Oh,
So,
that's right. Okay.
right. So all of those things are a byproduct of where of where you end up. But if you have
That's interesting, right? Depending on if someone was in a different position of their life, right? Were they really not welcomed, or were they, right? Okay.
right, and so for me, I don't feel like I wasn't welcome, but I definitely have stories of people who weren't welcomed into the facility, who were just looking to help, who were alumni,
Wow.
who put forth their time. Could
Okay.
compare that to the very first? So I think it was 20. I want to say it was 2018. So January 2018. I so Blazer and then another friend of ours, Rob, drove out to Arizona. And
Okay.
this was before Blaze and I were in partnership or anything. And we got a tour facility, or sorry, a tour of the facility. And then we came upstairs, and Herm was in his office with his wife and his daughters. And he made it a
Hmm.
point to come out, and he spoke to me, and he spoke to my two friends, and he had an honest, like, you know, talk, you felt heard, right? Like
Okay.
he wasn't just shining you on. Then his wife and his daughters came out
Ah,
to say hi.
that's cool.
And hey, nice to meet you. Thanks for coming. And then Herm said, like, look, you are welcome to me. He said, you are welcome anytime. You help build this
Wonderful.
place. You are always welcome. You don't need an appointment. You don't need to check. You show up, you're
You're
you
in.
you are in. And
That's
so
wonderful.
and he introduced me to Mawai that day.
Okay.
And I have a picture with Herm, me, Kevin, my two friends.
Right
Uh,
on.
and so that just makes you go, oh man, and I was all in on. By all in, I said what I had said is I would play for Herm. I don't think the way Graham was treated was the right way to do it,
Fair.
but I do understand. I understand it. I don't agree with it, but I also am on board and said this from the get go that I would play for Herm in a heartbeat. The things that
Right.
he says, the things that he does, he clearly cares about his guys. I think that's evident.
Right.
My concerns, were other things which have, been resoundingly um, put to rest. Minus, I still think the offense can do more, but
Yeah.
but
It
I,
sounds like they're gonna with Zach Hill there.
and I think that's where you start to see the growth, right? I think Herm understands, like, if I'm going to have these kids, right, that want to play with JD and want these
Right.
skilled positions, then I'm going to have to open it up, because that's like, you got to let him display those talents, and you got to let those kids display those talents. And I think for the most part, and based on what I see, and I'm fine with a run heavy offense, but you gotta run to win, but throw to score. And we don't.
Yeah.
I don't think we're. I think in the past we've relied too heavily on the individual to make plays, and not enough to let the scheme
I
help
see what you're saying.
help
Okay.
help them to create that. And I think that's what I think Zach will do. I think Zach will still allow those kids to flourish. Nikhil flourished. I just think Nikhil could have flourished more,
Yes.
right? Put him
100%.
in different positions, put him in, and there were times where that happened, but it just needed to be more consistent,
Yep.
exploit what he was really, really good at. And I think, again, Zach will do that. So I think it's also a fine line. I find it difficult to balance critique and making sure the critical is heard versus, I'm being critical of individuals. You know what I mean? Or that it means I don't
Right.
care about, or that I don't support ASU football, right? You have to be willing, you have to, I heard this from somebody, relentless, right? Relentless self-analyzation. You have to
Mm.
relentlessly self-reflect. And that goes for a football team too. And so you can't look at 2019 ASU football and not see that there are places where we can absolutely improve.
Right.
And that's a byproduct of a different things, freshman quarterback, freshman offensive lineman. Yes, all of those things matter. So then what you have to do is a better job of scheming when you
Mm-hmm.
have those deficiencies. And I don't know that we have always done the best
Yeah.
at that over the last couple of years. And again, I think, I think it's unfair to Todd Graham too. If you like, every decision begets every other decision, right? Firing Bruce, I understand why it was necessary because of the program had basically been average
Right.
after 97. I get why you hired Cutter because he was exciting, he was new,
New,
but
flashy, young, all that.
right,
Yeah.
but he didn't recruit enough for the lines and right, and so
Right.
now you bring in, so that then turns into Erickson because Erickson can recruit talent,
Yeah, he
which is
can.
what he
Jeez.
right, which is what he did. But the problem is now that's it. He can recruit talent. That was all he could do.
Oh yeah,
Right.
it
There was
was all raw.
right. That's it. Which is why Vontez ended up being the way Vontez was because he needed. Look, I saw Vontez in high school. He needed somebody. He needed a college coach to say, like a Phil Snow or Kent Bear or somebody to say, look, you can't act this way. You
It
cannot
wouldn't
be
have
a
been Graham then. You think Graham would have probably corralled him too tightly?
I think that's why we got Graham because
Oh,
Graham was 180 degrees from where Erickson was,
right.
right? So you now, because you've gone to Erickson to get the talent, but no discipline, no
Yeah.
organization, no anything of anything, right? Then, okay, so now you go 180 degrees different, which is what Graham did and which is what the program needed. And Graham stabilized Arizona State,
Yeah.
but that there's a summit on that.
Yeah.
There's a
We
peak,
saw it.
right? And again, there's a difference between how it was done and it needing to be done, right? And that was more my issue. I understand big time college athletics. I understand, you want to make decisions. You're the AD, make those decisions. What I have a problem with is if you're going to make those decisions and you're going to say certain things, then it better be that way across the board because I don't do
Yeah.
well with hypocrisy as a person, and I certainly don't do it well when my university is doing it because either you have a standard for every program
Right.
or or it changes, and it can't change because then you don't have what you're looking for. And if you want to go with this new leadership model, which I'm okay, I mocked it at the beginning and I will freely admit that
Right.
I
Same.
understand it better now.
Right.
um, but I still think there are I don't think that um, should stop us from being critical of
Right.
decisions that are made. And I think this is the comment I had earlier. I think it was yesterday on Twitter. I think there's a difference, and I was referring to the Bubba Wallace situation. There's a difference between questions and questioning, right?
Okay.
There's a big difference. Like if you ask me
Right.
questions, you're curious about the answer. If you're
Yes.
questioning, that's a matter of you're questioning either my integrity or what I'm saying or whatever the
You're
case may be.
challenging. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a big difference.
Absolutely.
So understanding that I can ask questions or be concerned about things that I'm seeing is different than, hey, I don't support the program.
Right.
I don't believe that you should be a blind supporter of anything. I don't, even your alma mater, you shouldn't be a blind supporter. It can't be all rah-rah. It just can't.
It's crazy too because there are some out there that are. It's like, yeah, you have to be blind, rah rah, and it's no matter what. It's like, no, that's not how it really works out.
And ultimately what you're doing is when people do that, they're not hearing your argument.
Yeah.
They're focused on the emotion of, oh, you don't care. And I have the unique position of go, oh, really? Okay, sure, if you want to
Right.
go that route. And I try to be very measured in what I say. There are people within the program, obviously Doug Tamaro is one of them that I'm not interested in, trying to rip the program for the sake of ripping,
Hmm.
right? But I'm also I'm aware of my relationships, and I need to be thoughtful in how I
Right.
respond to those things, because I'm not, there are people who work for the university that
Absolutely.
follow me or read it or whatever. So again, it's understanding questions versus questioning. And I think
Right.
questions are important. Where's money going? What are we doing?
Of course.
Hey, what's this program versus that program? Because it doesn't seem to me that the standard at which we have been told is the standard is applied equally to all sports.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Absolutely.
And
Because
I
then it's
think
all the same. Yeah.
right. And I think enough people understand what program we're talking about. I don't think it's equal in what has been said.
Mm,
Again, ultimately the AD has the power, right? Like, you want to
of
make the
course.
decision, make the decision.
That's where it's going to come from.
I just, it's like I write on political stuff. Word salad, man. Right. And Bruce was excellent at teaching us this. Like, you don't, and I said this earlier today, you don't have to answer the question that's been asked of you ever. Right. You answer
Okay.
the question. Like, what Bruce taught us is, if a reporter asks you a question like, hey, what did you think of the defensive game plan? Or, hey, after the Rose will be a great one. Hey, the defense went prevent. What'd you think about that? Yeah, man, it's never comes down to, just a single series. It comes down to,
Right.
things we didn't. And so it's that coach speak or whatever that people get tired of. But ultimately what you're doing is you're answering whatever question you want to answer.
Yeah, exactly.
But
Yeah, you're not
if
going to
you,
go say it sucked or why I'm blah. He was
right,
like, yeah,
right.
exactly.
But if you're going to be asked a question as Ray has been asked, and you have a stock answer, or an answer you truly believe, whatever, either, right? Then that message has to be consistent. And I
Yeah.
think that is where at times the message gets lost, because fans are frustrated, but they're not able to accurately
Yeah.
communicate what their frustration is. Yes, it's baseball is losing, or it's football is this, or whatever. That's a
Whatever it
symptom.
may be.
The cause is that you have a problem with the hypocrisy of, you say one thing and yet it's not equally applied, or you do another based upon, either you hired
Right.
that person, or right, you inherited that person, or whatever the circumstances or context around that decision are. I just want it to be consistent.
Of course.
And I don't think calling people out on that consistency, no matter how high they are up in the organization, whether it be Crow or Anderson, is above that. You're a public employee who gets paid millions of dollars, that
Yeah.
you ask that you're asking from dollars from hardworking people. You should, to me, you should be respectful enough to answer, to be consistent with your answers.
That's a
And,
minimum you could do, right? Because you still
right,
answer to the people.
of course,
Yeah.
right. But I mean, and I think it's also important that fans hear this part, that no head coach, to get to that level, I don't care if you're Herm or Saban, it's degrees, but there's no way you get to be at that place and at the top level without having an ego.
Got it. Absolutely. That makes sense. No,
And
that's
so,
fair.
and I think fans expect, coaches to not be arrogant. It's like, you have to, there's a degree in anything, right? To be a CEO, there's a level of arrogance.
There is a level
Right.
of arrogance there. Absolutely. You have
And
to have it.
you have to have it, and you have to accept it. Yeah. And you have to accept it, because if you want your team to be successful,
Night,
then
kids.
Hey, yeah.
Hi.
Hey, bud.
So if you want to be successful, or you want your program to be successful, then that's who you want.
Yeah.
You just are hopeful that the person that you get has integrity on top of it, and
Right.
Herm has that. But I also think, I think there's also there's a part of that why Herm was kind of middle of the road in the NFL, because he has integrity, and he's gonna he believes in, like, if I say this, then that's what I'm gonna do. I can't say one
Right.
thing and do another, or I can't and this apply things differently. Whereas I think other coaches can,
Mm.
and I don't think he's willing to do that. Does he need to make adjustments? Sure, but I don't. He doesn't. The read I get on him is not a win at all cost guy. The
Yeah.
read I get on him is he cares about his players. He wants to empower his players. He wants his players to have success. He wants this program to have success. He wants people to be happy and have a good time.
Right.
All of those things matter to him. And then, and so he coaches accordingly, right?
Yes.
Like, do I think he has an ego? Yes. And I think you can see that in the offense and how we run things. Like, this is how he wants things run. And he's a head coach. Okay. But I also think he recognizes, or is recognizing, look, I've got to be a little bit different. I've got
Okay.
to allow these guys to really flourish, to really get after it. Because if you're going to get, 3, 4, 5 receivers in a recruiting class, they're going to want the ball.
Yeah.
And you
Exactly.
better, and so you need two things. You better have an offensive line that can protect and run it when you need it, and then you better have guys or a quarterback who can sling it. And JD
Can sling it to everyone.
And he's the first player I've seen that reminds me of Jake.
Because that's always been the case, right? We've always had some quarterback that was great at slinging the ball, but they would always beat on someone.
Right.
It always like, that's the one, that's the
Right.
one, and that's my first read, and that's my go-to, and no matter what, oh, I see you. Yeah.
It's got to be, if you want the team to be successful, then what you need to spread it around. Again, different offense, but Lindsey Jackson caught passes, Kenny Mitchell caught passes, Ricky Boyer, Steve Bush,
Right.
JR out of the backfield, JR in the slot, our backs out of the backfield. All of those guys caught balls. Devin Kindle, all of them. And so, because of those things, we had our philosophy was run first, but Jake never. Well, I think Keith and him had the most connection. Just they connected.
Oh, interesting.
Non-verbally.
Yeah.
But Jake never, like, oh, Keith's supposed to get the ball.
He's my only read. Yeah.
Right. It's, hey, this is the read. Let's make the read.
Right. Exactly. And that's back to what you're saying about scheme, not one individual.
Right.
Got it.
And again, I think everything is a byproduct of the talent that you have. You have, last year we had Eno, and I still don't think Eno works. And I told you this, in a zone scheme versus a gap scheme. He's more of a north-south runner than he is an east-west runner. He absolutely.
Right.
But you want to try to use the spread offense to spread the field to get him more looks, because your offensive line is young and isn't something,
right.
It's not the strength of your team at that point. And so I get that, but you can still run a gap scheme out of that would, I think, have taken better advantages of Eno's skill set than running a zone scheme. Can Eno do both? Sure, absolutely. Do I think he would have been more successful or had more yards or whatever if he had been in a gap scheme? For sure. But look, that's easy to say. I'm also not there. You know what I mean? I don't.
Right.
it's you're on the outside looking in, and you have thoughts,
Of
but
course.
until you're in it, and until you see it, and you live it, it's man, it is a it, it's hard. And it's a hard mentality to try to change in from, and it's something that I've learned again over the last several years, is you don't have to grind, you don't have to work 7 days a week to be successful. You
Okay.
have to work efficiently and smartly. But too often football coaches conflate how hard they work
Yeah.
with success, and it's
How
like,
much hustle?
right, or back in my day, why do you keep doing this? Well, we've had success, and when I did it, really, it's the only sports are the only thing, right? And football in particular is something that we look back and go, okay, well, let's do it like we did 40 years ago. Are you still using a rotary phone? You are not. You are using a cell phone,
Right.
because things evolve and they change, and you change with them. But instead, no, let's look back to 40 years when Bear Bryant was coaching because he had success. Okay, I think we've learned a few things since then. People also used to
Absolutely.
think, hey, don't drink water, it makes you weak. Like that was a
Right.
I mean that's not that long ago. That's when I was in high school. We didn't get water breaks. Like I when I was at Arizona State and we would run in the summer, we didn't run with water. There wasn't water out on the field. We would run
Yeah.
our hundreds or 110s, and then we would get water in the locker room.
Oh, okay.
There wasn't we didn't bring trainers didn't bring water out in the summer. Like
Okay.
that didn't happen.
Right.
That does that make it smart? No, that's stupid. That's just dumb, right? Let's be honest. That's stupidity. But then instead of going, oh, that's dumb, coaches go, well, I made it through, so let me make this kid
Yeah.
make
So
it
it's
through.
still
And it's
good.
like,
Like,
and
nope.
so that's the part that I'm and Blaze and the people who train the way we train and what we've learned are really trying to get away from, is also being positive with your coaching cues. So often, and 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 I think you'll do this now, just and anybody who hears it will do in general. How often do you hear don't do this? Hey kids, don't do that all the
Always.
time. Okay.
Always.
Right. And I'm the same, and I was the same way. And so it's been twofold for me, having special ed students where I have to be
Mm,
more I have to be specific in what I'm saying.
right.
Because if I'm not, they'll if you take giving them an inch, they'll take 7,000 miles,
Yeah, you will. Yeah.
being specific. But the brain doesn't hear don't. It just doesn't. So
Mm,
if you say don't slice, your brain hears slice.
yeah.
Doesn't never registers the don't. So we are so often in sports, especially, we tell kids all the things that we don't want them to do, but we never tell them what we do want
Yeah.
them to do.
Okay.
And so it's shifting into a positive culture of what, not so much like positive affirmation, like, oh, you're great.
Of course.
Positive, it's a positive thought process of, oh, I now know what to do because I can explicitly know, as opposed to,
Okay.
hey, don't do this, which now means you have to figure out it means to do this.
Right. It's a constructive. You're helping build, and it's not destructive. Like I know what not to do, but then where am I?
Right. And
Yeah.
so you are building a better and more efficient athlete because you are giving them what they need to be successful, and
Right.
then also giving them more freedom to allow them to use their athleticism. It's something I didn't really register, but think of it this way. Here we are watching these Division 1 athletes and we go, man,
Right.
they are super athletic. Like, again, take a N'Keal Harry, like just ridiculous athleticism.
Yes.
How often did we get to see him use his athleticism?
Very. What? 2-3 hours on one day a
But
week.
even then, even in a game, did we get to see him?
Oh, a fraction of that. Right. Yeah.
Right. And that is what you want. You want kids to be and athletes to express who they are as athletes. They are the top 10
And they get
college
okay.
Division 1 athletes are the top 5% roughly of athletes.
Okay.
Professional athletes are less than the top 1%
Right.
of athletes. And yet, as coaches, we are constantly telling them all the things that they have to do to fit in this box. Like,
Right.
oh man, like you're an athlete, be athletic. Now, do I give you structure? Do I give you a philosophy and pillars to build from? Yes, but I need to get away from regimenting every single movement that you do
Mm,
and instead allowing you to live in that movement, if that
right.
makes sense.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And some
So,
of the people are sharing that right in there in the chat, right? Is building mental athletes, right? Having that
correct.
mental and
So
right.
it's everything, right? An athlete, so often athletes are boiled down to their athletic ability,
Mm-hmm.
but being a top athlete is so much more than that. The processing that goes on
Yep.
with what you see, because we're so conditioned to watch it from TV and go, "Oh, I've seen that. Oh, I
Yeah.
know what that." Right? But now put yourself in a 3-point stance, and you've got those guys in front of you who are trying to knock the crap out of your quarterback,
Yeah.
and you have to process. Okay, well, what was the play call? What's the cadence? Right? What's
Mm-hmm.
the front I'm seeing? What's the blitz package I'm seeing? What's the coverage I'm seeing?
Wow.
And what does all that mean based upon all the film
Mm.
study and information I've had prior to that?
Wow.
Right. So if you look at it in those terms, if you are constantly in a player's head, you have now taken away what they do best, which has allowed them to get to where they are, which is to use their athletic ability. You need to enhance a player, not hold that player back. Because
Absolutely. Makes
too
sense.
often coaches use the player as an extension of what it means for who they are.
Okay.
Right? If Mike Safell gives up no sacks in his in this year that he plays, and he worked with me, well, by golly, that's because he worked with me, why he didn't give up any sacks.
Right.
Like, again, excuse my language, that's bullshit. Like, come on. That's just is.
Yeah.
I'm not that's me taking credit for him playing the game and him battling every play, because that's what
Right.
it is. Like, it's hard to express it, that mental gymnastics you have to play with yourself
Wow.
to be successful is exhausting.
I
And
bet.
it's not the physical. The physical you recover from, it's the mental and being. And then again, you have to then throw all those other things. That's if in a perfect world. Mike, like me, has gone through injury concerns and surgeries. So now,
Right.
right? So now the thing that you love the most, and this is what I explain to people. In high school, everybody has their first crush, right? That first love. Mine wasn't a person, mine was the sport. And that's
Okay.
that's what I fell in love with. And it's what I devoted my time to.
Right.
And so when you devote that time to it and you love it like that, and then you are hurt and you cannot participate in that thing, and it doesn't matter how good you are, out of
Right.
sight, out of mind, man. If you are injured and you can't help the team, sorry, like it's just the way it is. Like they don't have there's nobody picking you up. There's no coach saying, "Hey man, it's going to be okay." There's nobody, "Hey, if you battle back, you know, you'll get that."
Right.
It's, "Hey man, make sure you're doing your rehab," or, "Hey, how are you feeling?" And then it's everything is up to you to battle and come back.
Come back.
And then have it happen again. And then have it happen again. And it's what I try to express to people who haven't been through it about Andrew Luck. Like it's like everybody's like, "Oh,
Right.
suck it up." Like, yes, I get that aspect. But until you have spent 9 months getting yourself back to where you were and to where you can play at the highest for him it was the NFL, for me it was at ASU, at the highest level,
Right.
and then you get hurt again and have to do it again, and then it happens, and it's a
It
repetitive
just keeps
cycle,
going.
man. It is wearing on
Yeah.
you, and it just becomes what happens is the thing that you love becomes the thing that you really just you no longer want to be a part of.
Right. It's no
Um,
longer labor of love. You're just go ahead and
it's
going
just
through the
it's just
motions
labor.
and
It's just
absolutely.
labor. It's
Mm.
work. It's no longer
Yeah, it's
you're
not
not
fun.
getting you're not getting the enjoyment out of it. So
Absolutely.
I mean, it's kind of a convoluted way to get through that, but it's never just one thing, you know what I mean?
Got it. Question back to your recruitment. I think you may have mentioned this one. I know, and again, if you have missed the first part of the social club, Kyle did share a bit about his recruitment. You visited 4 schools in 2 weeks because you're
4
playing
schools in 2 weeks.
basketball. But you committed on your ASU visit, but what was your number 2 choice?
Oregon.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, probably would have been Cal had Cal not asked me to walk on, but Cal asked me to walk on, and I looked at them and said, "Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
good.
bye.
Deuces."
Exactly.
And then Colorado State, I was their number 1 recruit, but then they had a coaching change, and Sonny Lubick had come in, and at that point,
Oh,
they reevaluated everything, and stuff happens. I mean, it was really down between Oregon and Arizona State. Growing up in Oregon, I'd lived there, I'd been there. I didn't really want to go back, honestly.
that's fair.
At that point, I had family. My aunt and uncle lived in Arizona. They owned a pool hall right down the street from the university.
Okay.
And so I could see them. I could work there if I needed. My chance to start was really good.
Oh, okay.
Which was a lot of the reason. I got a great vibe from AC, and I felt really good because again, I wasn't like I didn't drink in high school, I didn't party in high school, like I didn't do any of that, and so
Right.
my recruiting trip to Cal was quite the experience. I got to experience San Francisco, downtown San Francisco,
Yeah.
for the
Before
first
it was
time.
semi cleaned up.
Yeah. And some of the shows, shall
Yeah,
we say,
exactly.
were an eye-opening experience, and had a blast. But at Arizona State, I was beat, right? I was 4 trips in 2 weeks, and AC was like, "Hey, what do you want to do?" And I'm like, honestly, I just really want to chill and not do a whole lot of anything. I just kind of want to hang out with you guys.
Can we
And
go
he
to bed
was,
early?
well, and he was super cool with that, like super cool. It was mellow, and then I don't do a ton of things really well, but my gut has been really good to me. Just I can read
That's cool.
situations. I read people really well. I've rarely been wrong when I like kind of judge a person. Like, hey, like like Blaze is a perfect
Okay.
example. Got a great vibe from him right from the get go, and it just grew from there. And so when I know it, I know it, and when I don't, I don't, and
That's outstanding.
I make decisions based off that, and I've learned to trust it. Like when the new coach at Pacifica came in, and I sat down and I talked to him, and his philosophy and my philosophy are not the same.
Interesting. So you knew.
It's the way people speak. It's no different than when you speak to people and if they're feeding you a line of
Yeah.
BS or what they truly care about. He truly cares about himself and the win-loss record, and what I truly care about is molding young athletes to make themselves feel confident and so that they feel good about themselves.
Absolutely.
And I'm not. That's not to say that my way is the right way, but I know this, and you had said this earlier, and it pertained to us and my wife, by us, my kids, or my wife and us and kids. There's never a right time for certain things, right? Like you can always go, there's never a right time, but there's
Right.
definitely a wrong time, right? There's
Exactly.
definitely and there's definitely a wrong time for things. So I just think if you are truly honest with yourself and what you
Right.
want out of your program, you will look at the macro again, and I've used that term a lot
Exactly.
for the kids. But as we know, not everybody gets into teaching or coaching because they want to help kids because it's an ego boost. It's look
Mm,
at me, whatever. And you just know
right.
it. You can feel it. When people are being sincere, and it's even as like me, if I say, hey, I don't like talking about myself, right? There are those people who, when they say that, you're like, okay, they really want to talk about themselves. They're trying to be humble. Or you just feel like, yeah, it makes them uncomfortable. Like you can hear it in just
Okay.
the words expressed or the tone or whatever, fake
Right.
versus non-fake. And coaches are the worst at it. And football coaches, basketball coaches are really bad too, because I've coached that too. It's a bunch of posers, right? Because they're so insecure with who they are that everything is wrapped up in this one sport. Again,
Right.
I love football. It's given me a lot. It's
Of course.
provided me with more than I ever thought was possible. But it's only one aspect of who I am. It's not
Exactly.
all of who I am. And it can't be. It's no different than any job.
Yeah, because I mean, if it's all consuming, then you're definitely one dimensional, right? And that's
Right.
not what life really is. Because if you're
Right.
one dimensional, then then you're going to be absolutely that. So I did have one question I was posing. I was keeping this one, and I'm not sure if you had shared this one before, and you may have mentioned it, but I wanted to know, where did you first meet Pat Tillman, and what was that conversation like?
I don't know that I can tell you exactly when I met him. I can tell you, the same kind of pocket of there, that story of really where I first learned of who Pat was when we learned up at Camp T that he had told Bruce that, I'm not redshirting. I'm sorry, what? And again, you have to put yourself in the mentality of what a 18, 19, 20-year-old who has their scholarship. The other thing that most people don't know is your scholarship's not a 4 or 5 year scholarship.
Right.
It's a 1 year renewable contract that you have to live up to, and you have to sit through meetings and compliance and all of that. So
Right.
when you know that, and more so then and in the past than now, how do you get success? You listen to your coach, you follow your coach, you don't question your coach, right? Like they know best. That's the model that had been presented to us. Pat was like, yeah, I'm not interested in your model. I'm interested in what I want to be doing. And so that, while Jake was a unique personality, I'd never heard anybody present themselves like that was okay. Like you get to determine. And what I later understood, like as a player, I'm hearing Pat saying, I want to play so that I can get out of here. Right.
Oh.
That's not what Pat's saying. Pat's saying, you have me for this time. So you can take advantage of that time or you're not, but my time isn't changing. I'm going to be here for 4 years and then I'm bouncing. And so whatever you do with that time, that's your decision. And that's something that it took me a long time to understand. It comes across as selfish, but in reality, it's more, I'm just making you aware of what's happening. I'm making you aware of what my goals and aspirations are. What you do with that information is entirely up to you.
Exactly.
And so it was that. And then it was against BYU. Both he and Damian Richardson got to play and played a lot on special teams. And I saw the plays he was making and just kind of the reverence that both he and D Rich were getting. And it was like, well, why? Right. And then so those are kind of the two things. But I think people talk about like, oh, he demanded to be not to be redshirted because he thought he was so good. And that's not where Pat was coming from, because that's not how Pat spoke.
Right. It's interesting you put that up, because it's like, it's definitely, it was time. I cannot reclaim my time.
Right.
And this is what we have. And but it's also, again, the way I see it, I think he told Coach Snyder that, right?
Yes.
And I think it's a brilliant sign of his leadership and his style to recognize and acknowledge, okay, let me foster this and let me turn this into something, rather than, someone else who could have taken the opportunity. It's like, beat it, kid, you're bothering me. Right.
Well,
it's like,
like if you want a team to be successful, you need leaders all over the field. Like
Hmm.
Jake is unquestionably the leader because he's the quarterback, and the way he handled himself in tow to that.
Right.
However, you need leaders everywhere. Derek Smith was a leader, Vince Amy, right? Pat Tillman,
Right.
Juan, Keith, Jeff, Michael Martin, everybody. There's leadership, and you need it everywhere. And
Okay.
what Pat did, and I think what I don't know that any of us really recognize was that it's okay to really be who you are. Like Jake was true to who he was, but it's okay to be that person. Like,
Okay.
oh snap, right? Uh, I can. It's okay to be who I am, and my leadership quality doesn't have to be the same. I'm not
Right.
a like I'm not a rah
Okay.
rah guy. I never have been, and I have been as a coach, but that's not my style. As a player, it wasn't my style. Like I didn't get
Okay.
up and talk a lot and all. Just lead by example.
Right.
You need that. You
Agreed.
need talkers. You need it all. And so I think for us, it was a recognition that, whoa, okay, maybe we can have a little bit of say, or maybe we do get a little bit of freedom, and it's what, and then you
Yeah.
throw on, Derek Rogers in '96, who's more experienced, who has lived more life, right? Not by
Yeah.
much, but some, right? Lived in, had been in the Air Force and following
Right.
orders, and but then the coaching staff allowing him in his freedom to kind of in exploiting and Phil and Snow using, what Derek did, and then really creating game plans through that to
Wow.
use these people's skills. Um, just kind of as I got older, I started looking back at those things and understanding how those came to fruition, as opposed to like it's, hey, yeah, it's put your best 11 players on the field for sure,
Right.
but it has to be your best 11 that will play with together. It's not just the best, most talented. And that,
Right.
again, I think that's something that gets um, misinterpreted when it comes to, you need your best 11. That doesn't mean your most talented 11. It means
Right.
your best 11. And you need people to be followers. And that is a hard thing to do when you are full of alpha males. Because make no
Yeah.
mistake that every football team is full of alpha males. There's not
Yeah.
a single guy that has gotten to a Division I program that is not an alpha male.
Right. Absolutely.
You can't get there without it being. But if you're the true test is, are you willing to then understand that what is needed is not that from you, but it's this,
Yeah.
right? It's adjusting to what your team needs to be successful. And
Right.
ultimately, that's what offensive linemen are. They are what your team needs. If you want a good, honestly, if you want a good team, find that offensive line. If that
Yeah.
offensive line is dominant and good, then your team is good. And I have not found a dominant offensive line that isn't good, maybe with the exception of the Cleveland Browns, because that's just a poorly run organization when they had, when they had Alex
Yeah.
Mack and Schwartz and Joe Thomas. But again, those are few and far between, right? It's
Right.
typically your team goes as your own line goes. And if you want, if we talk about ASU, if you look at that last year, the inconsistencies that you get from the team are the inconsistencies that you're getting from the offensive line, right? They
Excellent.
go hand in hand, because the offensive line controls everything else, right? You protect your quarterback,
Absolutely.
you run the football, right, which takes pressure off your defense. All of those things matter, and it's why it has to be such a concerted effort for ASU to make sure that not only do they get talented guys, but you got to be deep, right?
Right.
I mean, a perfect example is '97. The '97 season for us, as it started, was from left to right was Troy Davis, me, Randy Leapart. Sorry,
Okay.
excuse me, that's not true. It was Gray at left tackle, me at left guard, Randy Leapart at center, and then Mike Barnes at right guard and Troy Davis at right tackle.
That was the start of this 96 season.
That's the start of the 97
season. Okay, go ahead.
96 was left to right, Roquet, me, Kirk Robertson, Pat Thompson, Gray Rugermer.
Okay,
so Gray switched from right to left tackle.
Wow, okay.
But versus Oregon State, Randy, our center, had played like trash. And so at the conclusion of that game and the start of practice the next week, Marvell Smith who's a redshirt freshman, was moved to left tackle. Gray was moved to center. Randy was out. Victor Leyva became our right guard. Glenn Gable became our starting right tackle permanently. And so that happens too, right? Like things change. Things aren't one thing and then they're the other. So we'll see what happens. You got to have depth though.
That's the thing, right?
Enough depth. Yeah.
And that still don't have enough depth.
We don't have enough depth, and that hasn't. I mean, you don't have enough depth if you have to start 2 true freshmen.
Yeah, last year exactly, and 2 true sophomores now.
Well, right, but again, there's no true freshman that should beat out. I mean, athletically, okay.
Yeah.
But you really shouldn't. I mean, you just don't have enough depth, right?
Yeah.
And that's a variety of reasons. Guys are getting hurt or whatever, but
people left, not recruiting, who knows?
Right, but that's kind of my point too. Like with Chad Coate, right? So, I want him to be well. I'm glad he got a 6 year. I hope he stays healthy, and I hope it really works out for him. But if you're a program, you can't count on him.
Absolutely.
And that's heartbreaking. But you ultimately, it's a business, right? And it has to be treated as such. And it's hard because you're dealing with individuals, but you have to have your O&D line have to be stacked because there's just too much attrition that happens because of it.
Yeah, absolutely. That is it, man. Thank you, everyone. No, that I appreciate that insight, right? I thank you for that as well, because I was curious as to what it was like when you first, met or even just interacted with Pat. Because did he come in same year?
No, he was 94, so I came in
the year after.
He came in the year after, but we graduated the same year since he didn't redshirt. So Damian was the same way. Damian Richardson was the same way. Neither one of those guys redshirted. They were playing special teams, their true freshman year. And that's the other thing that made Pat so special. Like, go back and watch film of how he was on every special team except PAT, field goal, I think, except PAT and PAT field goal. That may have been the only one.
Wow.
He wasn't on. And he was oftentimes our leading special teams tackler.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember that being the stat where he was actually all over the place. They would highlight him. It's like, watch this, and then he'd just go.
And it just, it was honestly, it was a lot of fun to play with those guys. Like those guys,
that's quite the family.
Yeah, I mean, we competed, we fought at practice. Like, I would purposely hold guys. I got in a fight with Pat because of that. So what guys have to do when you play, when you're in practice, right? There's what's called 9-on-7, which is what run drill, and then there's 7-on-7, which everybody knows now.
Right.
But there's also, and then there's 11-on-11 or team. And so we would always go for, Bruce was a big believer in first team versus first team for at least 5-6 reps, not a ton of reps, but to get it. So, and then Coach Snow wanted everybody to run to the ball, right? Because you're not allowed to tackle unless it was deemed live. You could, thud. And as far as bringing a ball carrier to the ground, everything else was live.
Okay.
And so you never wanted to be the last defensive guy to run to the ball because, right, you're last because so wherever the ball ended up, all 11 guys had to run to the ball.
Right.
Well, I'm an a-hole. And so what I would do is I would hold the person because I could see where the ball was.
Yeah.
And so I would see to make it so they were the last person to be there.
Oh, man.
So, yeah. And so they would get yelled at, and inevitably, well, Murph's holding me. And then Coach Snow would say, I don't give a F. right? Get him off you. And so I did it to Pat once and he was not at all happy.
He was
tried
not
to knock
happy.
my hands down. He started swinging. We started fighting. So that's a really good story, but it does speak to who we were, right?
Yeah.
When we played, like it was fun, man. Those first 2.5 years were really hard.
Right.
But the last 2.5 were a lot of fun. I mean, we
That's
were
good.
20-4 in my last 2 years there. So
Wow, that's crazy. 20-4. Wow.
yeah, and then I got to. Not a lot of people get to do this. I got my last college football game at Arizona State was a win. So
Okay.
we beat Iowa in the fashion in which we did it.
It was, yeah.
You know, when you get to run 61 times over 7, and it's just 72 plays, it makes you feel good. So, and it made, on top of the fact, Michael Martin got to be the offensive MVP, which he deserved after
Right.
having missed out on the Rose Bowl year and everything he had gone through, because he had gone through a lot of injuries as well.
Absolutely.
And people thought we were soft, and Iowa was this big bad team, and Campbell, being the backup because Keeley was hurt. So yeah, it was a lot of fun.
That was a good one.
And then I got to play with Damien. I played with Damien, Pat, and me. Yeah, the three of us got to go play in the East-West Shrine game.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Too. Yeah, and Damien broke Saladin McCullough's ribs during practice.
Right.
Saladin caught the pass over the middle, and because it was live, and the way we play live at Arizona State was full contact.
It was a full contact.
Not at Oregon. And so he ended up breaking Saladin's ribs on that play, and Saladin actually didn't play in the game. It's like, hey, that's.
How does that get dealt with, right? Does like the coach come in, or is like
coach just said, like, look, it was a freak thing. Damien wasn't trying. Damien didn't drive him to the ground. Damien just, didn't hit him with his head, drove his shoulder right into his ribs, and it just happened to break him when he hit the ground. It was a clean hit. It was a physical hit.
Oh, okay, got it.
It wasn't dirty. It wasn't. I mean, that's not how Damien plays.
No, you were just playing full blast.
Yeah, and that's how we were taught. And so it was unfortunate, but the coach was just like, that's too bad. But
that's what happened.
That's what happens.
I got it, man. That's actually one of the things that we got. Some James Jarvis. That win was one of the most dominating wins against a quality opponent ever. Great game to experience. And 80, what that was 04. Wait, no. What year was that?
That was 97. So December 31st, 1997.
97. I don't even know if trying to piece that time together because I had been married for less than 30 days, so I don't even know if I had the opportunity to watch the game.
It was on CBS. It was the Norwest Sun Bowl.
Oh, yeah.
El Paso. I won't ever go back to El Paso.
How many times were you there?
Once,
and that's enough.
I've been to Mobile and El Paso each time. I don't need to go back.
That was actually kind of.
El Paso is like, it's just, there's nothing to do if you're a college student. The only thing to do is to go to Juarez, right? Which is
Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. So, and we went. Guys went once, and then we went as a team for a rodeo, but I wasn't interested in and then our gifts were, we got a hairdryer. We got a nice bag, but we got a hairdryer, which was ridiculous.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, you always hear about that. They still hand out hair dryers.
Yes.
Like, what's that about?
And it was cold, and it's the disparity, because when you drive the freeway, if you're driving west around the stadium, you can look to the right, and El Paso Stadium is right there.
Yeah.
But you look to the left, and it's Juarez, like legitimately shacks and poverty, and it's a very uncomfortable dichotomy that you have to look at, and it doesn't make it. It just didn't. The game was great, and we had a lot of fun. But I mean, as an experience, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of other things, other bowl games I'd rather go to.
Did you guys get to come home right after the game?
Yeah. So what we not right. Yeah. So the next day. So
Oh, it was next. You stayed the night.
yeah. Um, Spent the night, and then just like at the Rose Bowl, you can either, based on where you live, you could drive home, you could fly home, you could bus home. You know, you
Okay.
kind of got your option. I flew home. It was brutal for me because I had hurt my back in October, so the end of October that
Oh.
year. And then in the game, so that was on the right side. And then in the game, I got a hip pointer in my left hip.
Oh,
So
wow.
I actually woke up, I couldn't sleep. Like, I mean, the pain was immense. I couldn't get
Mm.
comfortable. Um, and so it was a long, and I didn't sleep much. It was a long flight home. And then when I got home, it was okay. But yeah, I mean, it was not the pain
Yeah.
of it was, but the jubilation of winning was awesome,
Of course.
particularly because
Exactly.
we hadn't, we didn't beat I was not, my record at ASU against the U of A was not strong.
You split? Or were you 2-2? 1-3?
1-4.
No. Oh,
Yeah,
because you redshirted. That's
because I
right.
redshirted. So
Wow.
first year we lost. That was 93. 94, we got both. We weren't good.
Yeah.
95, we were up with 7.5 minutes to go, and Richard Dice caught two
Yep.
touchdowns and beat us. No, he caught the touchdown, and then we gave up. We gave up a line game stunt that got Jake sacked, and he fumbled that they recovered, and then
That's right. Okay.
and then so 93 through 95 we lost, 96 we won, and then 97 we lost.
Wow.
Yeah.
1-4.
1-4.
At least you're not
So,
0-3. I think Raphorst is 0-3.
Yeah, I can say that. At least I won. At
You
least
got
I
one more
won.
than him.
And the one that we won is what most people remember. So
Yeah.
it does help. But yeah, we 90, and what was hard, like 93, 94, we lost, and that sucked. But 95 was the hardest, and then 97 was hard just because it was my senior year. But
Right.
95 was the hardest because we had the opportunity to, if we win, we go to a bowl game, right? We were 3-8 the previous year.
Right.
That year we had, had a couple, we had a 3-game losing streak, I believe, in 95. And then we ended up beating Oregon, who was number 10 at the time.
Right.
That kind of gave us we got that winning streak. And then if we beat the U of A, we would have gotten to the Independence Bowl, but instead, no bueno. So, but again, everything happens for a reason. Yeah, but that's 95. That what happened in the U of A game is what helped propel that, and Nebraska are the two things that really helped propel us into 96.
Absolutely.
And U of A was more so than Nebraska.
Absolutely. I know someone had a question. I'm going to save that one for our next time we talk. But yeah, did you ever get to go to Chico's Tacos in El Paso?
I did not.
Okay.
I don't even remember where I ate, honestly. It's minus the game and going to Justin's to look at boots. I think those are, and getting the hair dryer, like when we opened up our gifts. Those are really the three pieces that
other than the win.
Which, and again, it's not surprising, but stuff about the Rose Bowl, like when we flew, the stuff that we got, that stuff I remember a lot more than,
of course,
than a ton of the Sun Bowl stuff.
Yeah, exactly. What did you get? What was the thing from the Rose Bowl that was good?
The Rose Bowl was honest. It was a lot. We got shoes. We got a bunch of sweat suits. I think we got a sweater. We got a watch. We got a duffel bag. We got a I forget what you call them, but that you carry your suit in, which was awesome because it had
garment bag. Yeah,
garment bag, right? So it had the Rose Bowl, 1997 Rose Bowl stitched on it.
Wow.
And so I think I still have it.
That'd be cool to see.
But just a bunch of clothes, like a lot of clothes, just
right on.
It was a duffel bag full because we flew also on Christmas. So
oh wow,
yeah, we flew over on Christmas, had the banquet, the Rose Bowl, like a Christmas dinner together, and then that's when they handed out our bags, right?
Oh,
so
got it.
It was kind of like a Christmas, which was pretty cool, and none of us had been to a bowl game at that point. So seeing all the stuff that we were getting was,
You got spoiled.
oh, it was amazing. The hotel we stayed at was great. Yeah, I mean, it was the experience itself was, yeah, even obviously minus the ending, but everything else was,
Yeah.
it was awesome.
Rob Rothfarb says that he was there with you. He watched you at that 97 Rose Bowl. So
Yeah, a lot of
that was
people. But one of the things that I tell all the time, so my high school buddies went to the game, and one of them to me after the game goes, "Man, that was really hard to watch." Oh, really? Was it? Was it really hard to watch? Man, can you imagine what it was like playing in it? Can't even
Yeah.
imagine.
Oh my God. And Ohio State fans were actually polite. That's interesting. They were actually nice after the game.
Yeah, I mean, and Nebraska fans were nice in '95. Those are the nicest fans I've ever experienced.
Okay.
By far, just super, thankful. Thanks for coming. No hard feelings. No, ripping us. None of that. Just super. Hey, guys played hard. Thanks for coming out. Really appreciate it.
They were but they were real quiet come the next year. They were not, they
Yeah.
didn't want to talk. I mean,
They
it's
don't-
like we're trying to be polite, but yeah, we were like, that was, we just
Totally
been
good
to the
love.
mountaintop, so we had to rub it in. I remember that. I celebrated that at a Club Rio. I was at Club Rio. I actually walked across. I didn't cross the bridge. I walked across Rio Salado. I went down
Nice.
down the riverbed there to the
Excellent.
stadium and back. So that's excellent. So I love you. Thank you so much for being on the show,
Yes.
man. It was amazing. It was
I
amazing
had a
time.
great time. Had a great time.
It was excellent. I can't wait for us to do another one, and appreciate everyone out there in the chat. They were actually pretty active out there, giving us good questions and all that as well. I'm going to switch over. Don't hang up on me though, because I want to talk to you real quick. But I'm going to do a quick announcement. Virtual Sun Devil Summit on the 10th. So in 2 weeks, we don't have a show. I'm going to have a show. We don't have a guest, so you get to look at me for another few hours next Friday. But I understand if some of you guys are going to be out or doing whatever, it being the 4th of July weekend, because if we're able to go ahead and go out, please be safe. If you're going to stay home, please join me, and we will have a conversation and play games and do whatever else we can next Friday. So looking forward to it. Thank you everyone again. Kyle James Jarvis out there, Crafty Devils, Rob Rothfarb, everyone's thanking you. So again, really appreciate your time. Amanda Keems sends love the only way she can with the gold hearts. So definitely appreciate that as well. So we're definitely working on that. But everyone out there, stay safe. Do your best. Love you. Love yourself. Love everyone around you. Share that love to everyone else. And we will definitely see you in a week. And as always, as we say, good night and go Devils.